Okay, we'll stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start any part of the meeting, a former school committee member, Thomas Thompson, died recently, and so and his daughter, Patty Benvenuti, works in our school. She's at Mary D. Stone. So I'd like to just have a few moments of silence to remember him. Thank you. Okay, we'll start with the regular session minutes, please.
I'll make a motion we accept the December 22nd minutes as written.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Vote. I'd like to go down before we, well, I'll ask Derek, do you have anything to report?
No, I have
okay.
nothing.
It's 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, so. We'll do, I'm going to move down to unfinished business, to the project management team, school buildings committee update.
Thank you, Mrs. Gibbons. I do want to just advise everyone, we had scheduled, there was a meeting scheduled of the Project Management Team School Building Committee for Thursday, January 8th, but that has been postponed until January 15th due to conflicts in schedules. I did note for you the agenda items that will be discussed on the 15th, and we'll come back to you at a subsequent meeting with an update in the minutes, as I regularly do.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to skip down again to business and financial report. Mr. Dede, can you talk to us about the oil prices for FY 2010?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The business managers met on Monday, December 29th to open the bids for oil. As you know from previous discussions, we had pushed up the procurement the better part of 5 months in the hopes of capturing a very decent price given the current market. There were 3 vendors, and the lowest priced, which is a fixed price, was $1.79 a gallon, effective July 1 of 09 through June 30 of 010. We opted also in this year's procurement to add into the document the option to renew for up to 2 years beyond June 30 of 2010. Now, it is not 2 years at that same rate, but it's 2 years working with that provider if we choose to do that, which means that we have the flexibility also in the course of the contract to have discussions with that provider about locking in at a rate given the market. That is a substantial decrease from this year's rate, which is $3.30, which we locked in back on September 4, and it is also a substantial decrease in the initial price for FY09 that we received, we being the business managers, back on May 4 of 2008. So, all said and done, I also appreciate the opportunity that day on behalf of the school committee to accept the $1.79 a gallon for July 1.
Okay.
Excellent news.
Very good news. Okay, so I need to have a motion to accept the heating oil bid price of $1.79, well, 1.7926 cents per gallon from Global Montello Oil for FY 2010 for the Auburn Public Schools.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, skipping around again, and we'll go We'll do the three-question summary report.
Sure. If you will recall, in the fall, I had posed 3 questions and advertised those through the Auburn News, through the school's newsletters, and basically we're seeking to give a voice to everyone in the community. Having not been here during the time that the strategic plan was created, a plan that I certainly endorse and look forward to working with the leadership on accomplishing those themes and goals set therein, but wanted to find out from people exactly where they felt the status of the Auburn Public Schools stood presently and set a vision for it as well. So the questions were, what 3 things about the Auburn Public Schools make you the most proud and believe we must not change? What 3 areas of concern do you have regarding the Auburn Public Schools and believe we should consider changing to further improve it? And finally, what is your vision of the Auburn Public Schools and how it should look in 5 to 8 years? I included in your packet the summary document, which is actually the 3 questions summary. It's a fairly lengthy document, but in there, as you can see, it listed many positives, and one of the ones that was mentioned in nearly every response that I received, and there were 49 responses received in total. Nearly everyone stated that one of the things they were most proud of in the Auburn Public Schools and believe that we should not change is the quality of our teaching and support staff. Many noted comments that they were welcoming, caring, and nurturing, that they had a personal commitment that was demonstrated on a regular basis. They were warm and talented and caring. There was pride of work demonstrated by school department staff at every level, which certainly was very reassuring. It was a sense that I certainly had before compiling this information for people. It was nice to see that of the 49 people who did choose to respond, most all of them noted that as one of their most positives. There were also many other things that people noted, respondents noted, regarding positives. One of them that was regularly mentioned was the pride that they feel in the new Auburn High School. They also believed that the nurturing small-town feel of the elementary schools was certainly a plus in the Auburn Public Schools. Some were appreciative of the fact that some stability has been brought, or what they would hope is stability brought to the superintendent's level, and that certainly is my intention as we move forward. Other items that were listed, and I don't want to read this for you, I will say to everybody who perhaps is watching today that I have broken this report up into a 3-part series that's going to be presented in the Auburn News, starting with the first section, which will be all of the positives in the January 14th edition, then areas of concern or suggestions on how we can make improvements in the January 21st, and then finally the vision in January 28th. We will also list this on the website for people to read as well. Many noted, and I thought this was an important piece, many noted this specifically with regard to the school district, but I would extend it to the community as well. What I would term as Auburn pride. The belief of people who responded that we were a community, a school community and a greater community, that is one, and certainly one that they want to even further strengthen, where others strive to emulate us as a school district and as a community. In terms of areas that they felt we should look to improve upon, some of them, obviously, as they mentioned, the Auburn High School being the beautiful facility in which most people had tremendous pride, that we do need to look at the other buildings, the other school facilities. And in an upcoming meeting I will be sharing with you, Mr. Fahey and I, Mr. Dede as well, have been doing some work with the MSBA to get our packet of information in order so that we can go forward. The first step that we'll do is actually create a master plan, and money was appropriated back in May of 2006 to create a master plan, and that will include input from the larger community as well. So as that moves forward, I will certainly keep everyone apprised of that. Other areas of concern that people suggested is that we need to, along with doing the new facilities, that we need to recognize that as the school department, we are the largest department in the town, but that we are one of many departments in town. So we need to balance being cognizant of the town's needs with also the school's needs and providing for our students and for our young children as they continue through their educational careers. And some warned that we need to be sure to not allow 15 years to lapse in the interim. That while we need to move forward, we recognize these are trying times, but we do have an obligation to provide the best that we can. The transparency in the budget was mentioned by a few people, and I think that today, as we move forward, I know it has always been the goal of the school committee to be transparent and open. It's a long process in creating a $20 million plus budget for the school department, and one which quite literally began here in the school department back discussion-wise in September or perhaps even in July and August upon my arrival. But formally, we began it in very early October. I think we'll see from the budget presentation we do today and the commitment in our plan as we roll that out that we truly are being transparent, but I appreciate those comments made by people. Some had ideas on how we could either save money or generate some revenues for the district, including updating our heating systems, looking at how do we manage the heat in one room as compared to the next room. Might we consider doing a nightlife or some other similar type program at the high school to generate revenues rather than people from the community going elsewhere to expand upon their knowledge base. In terms of communication, there were some suggestions that we hold parent-teacher conferences earlier in the year, that we enhance the school's website and provide up-to-date information and educational links that would be helpful for parents to see. And also to provide a web-based access for parents so that they can go onto the website and learn what their child's homework assignments are and also keep up to date on how their child is performing in the classroom on a regular basis. And there were others, obviously, but I don't want to read them all through to you. There were some singular suggestions that were made. You know, ensure that we instill in our students a strong civic background and an appreciation for democracy. Be sure that our conduct policy is one to which we hold students accountable and be sure that we follow through. Might we consider an after-school program at Auburn Middle School, and also to be sure that we recognize students for their achievements. In terms of the vision, there were several ideas. Not every one of the 49 respondents gave their input regarding the vision, but those who did, there was quite a bit of similarity actually in them. 3 of the goals that were mentioned most frequently of those who responded was to have new buildings with state-of-the-art equipment and technology, to provide stability over the long term by maintaining an administrative team that will stay with us for the long term, and a commitment to providing an excellent, top-quality, well-rounded education. One respondent actually mentioned that really what he saw as his vision, and it was echoed by others, perhaps stated slightly differently, but that we want to create an Auburn school system that when people around the state of Massachusetts are speaking about the best public schools in Massachusetts, that Auburn be on the tip of everyone's tongue. And I think certainly as a superintendent, and I would imagine that as a school committee, that would be our wish certainly too. So it was a beneficial exercise having gone through this. Certainly what I did find, as I stated in the beginning, is I wanted to be sure that the vision that I had was one that was shared by the community. If not, for me to change my vision to be sure it was in line with the community. This is not about what the superintendent would like for the schools. It's about what we as a full school community can do for our schools. So it was a wonderful exercise. I would be happy to answer any questions, but it will be on the website and will come out in the Auburn News over the next 3 weeks as well.
Are there any questions? I think this is a great this is a great piece of information and certainly a launching point for both you and the administrators to talk about issues with the public. Because some of the things in here, I think some of the suggestions for bettering the schools, I think that some of the suggestions, there are reasons why we currently do them, as well as good suggestions on how things should be changed. But if there are things that there are reasons why we do it a certain way, I think that should be brought out to the community and especially to parents as to why we do it a certain way. So I think that's a great piece of information for all of us.
I agree.
Thank you for doing that. Okay, we'll go back to the agenda, and I think what we'll do is, we do have superintendent's goals and evaluation update, but Dr. Brunel has also put that on the agenda for Monday night if we can't get to it today. So we'll start now with the FY 2010 budget presentation.
Through the chair, I'd like to just start with a brief introduction here, and then if I may, we'll go down to the computer. We do have a PowerPoint to do a budget kickoff, so to speak, to set the expectations for this whole budget process. As noted in this report, considerable time and attention has been paid to the development of the FY10 school budget. Certainly complicating this process were predominantly two issues. And the first one being the fact that we are, without question, in an economic downturn. I don't think any of us can pick up a newspaper, read a periodical, or turn on the television without being bombarded and have that message be reinforced to us. So that was something of which we were very cognizant as we moved forward. Secondly, we had a budget timeline that we had created, which was interrupted due to the weather-related issues with the ice storm, and we would have meetings and then would reschedule meetings, and then those would be postponed because of ice and whatnot. So certainly the first issue was the one with which we grappled with had most difficulty with. But we did work together as a leadership team to focus on what we believed to be most important as a school district as we move forward in full recognition of the economic challenges before us. So if I may, I will head down to the laptop and begin the presentation. Might it be easier if I turn the lights off? Okay. Is that easier to see? We can do the blinds if that helps.
No, it's fine.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to share with you the budget presentation for the FY 2010 for the Auburn Public Schools. As we began this process, we took guidance from Stephen Covey, who suggests to us that we should begin with the end in mind. And as a leadership team, we did just that. We had discussions about what was it that is most important to us as a school district. Clearly, the answer in every discussion was students and their achievement. So with that in mind, we also considered that the economic downturn is here, that economic challenges are before us. Yet we have an obligation to provide the best education possible for our students. And that is what drove us as we worked through this process. As a leadership team, we set priorities. We agreed that we needed to demonstrate extreme fiscal responsibility, yet keep focused on the mission of the Auburn Public Schools, to educate and prepare students for the challenges and opportunities of a changing world. Other priorities set was that we wanted, to the degree possible, to insulate the students from the economic challenges before us. We wanted to keep our educational program moving in a forward direction. To stall that momentum, even for a year, we believe would be a great disservice to our students. And the reason being, our students have but one opportunity to take full advantage of their educational career in Auburn before they graduate high school. We must ensure they get the most from first grade, from 7th grade, their senior year, and every grade in between. They simply cannot redo those lost opportunities, nor can we provide them. Additionally, we wanted to focus on the strategic plan. That plan was approved in November of 2007. The 6 themes listed were curriculum development, professional development, technology, stability of administrative team, facilities, and community relations. Combined together as a leadership team, we are committed to working together to ensure that this strategic plan and the goals set in that plan are carried out. Other priorities set with to focus on the school improvement at that level, as defined both in the school improvement plan and based on data from formal MCAS, SAT, and informal assessment measures that we regularly administer in our schools. And probably most importantly, we set as a goal or a priority to preserve teachers and students, to preserve teachers and staff who provide direct services to students. Again, back to one of our first priorities we set, which was to insulate the students from any potential negative impact that these economic times will have. To run through the budgeting process and how we went through this, back on December 3rd, the budget kickoff meeting was held at the town hall. Mr. Dede and I, and a couple of school committee members as well, attended that meeting, along with numerous other departments in the finance committee. The town currently is projecting a 10% reduction in state aid. That equates to an approximate $1.5 million reduction in what will be coming to Auburn. Additionally, by not raising the local property taxes by the up to the 2.5% limit, as currently voted by the Board of Selectmen, that reduces available funds in FY 2010 by an additional $700,000. Combined, the town is projecting a $2.2 million deficit in revenues from FY9 to FY10. Also, as part of that initial budget kickoff at Town Hall, it was listed in the packet that the school department was listed as level funded for FY 2010 as compared to FY 2009. The FY 2009 school department budget, which includes the appropriation at the fall special town meeting, is $20,589,392. Also noted in that booklet was the $160,000 in Medicaid funding as an outside article, as well as a cost of living adjustment which amounts to approximately $400,000 based on the salaries in FY9 for the school department. As a school department, with that information in hand, we began a multi-layered approach. The principals first worked with the staff members in their building to create a budget proposal as determined by student needs. Each then met with and defended their budget proposals with myself and the business manager. Mr. Dede compiled the budget, and the leadership team met on numerous occasions to review, to amend, and quite honestly, to pare the budget to the degree possible. Again, the needs of students was the focus of each and every discussion. You will see, school committee, that currently you have before you an FY10 budget proposal draft that shows 2 budgets. The first one is listed in a column as the FY 2010 required rate. This reflected the administrators' requests, which defined what they believed was needed to operate their buildings in FY10. This budget reflects an approximate 5.6% increase over 2009. As we continue to pare, and in recognition of the economic times before us, we created a second column, this one titled FY 2010 economic times rate. This reflects the administrator's budgets after cuts were made in light of the challenges before us. This budget reflects a decrease of 898/100,000ths% less than FY 2009, or $1,850 less. It is the leadership's team recommendation as we move forward at this point that is the budget that I will discuss from this point forward. This is a graphic which shows they're very, very close in number, obviously. The number for 2009 being $20,589,392, and 2010 being $20,587,542, which shows a reduction of $1,850 from FY9 to FY10. How were these budget reductions realized? Firstly, 5 teachers will retire from the Auburn Public Schools in June. We have budgeted their replacements at a master's step 2 rate. That realizes a significant savings. As Mr. Dede previously said to you, through aggressively seeking the best prices on oil, natural gas, and electricity, we have captured approximately $200,000 in savings. The system-wide professional development account, or line, was reduced by $80,000, leaving $50,000 in that line. Grant funds will be sought to support this line item to ensure that forward progress continues to be made. Also noted, this is one of the themes of the strategic plan, which was approved in November of 2007. Additionally, we trimmed support costs by about $21,000 to include supply lines and textbooks. We reviewed each of the maintenance support costs to include custodial supplies, building repairs and maintenance, and reduced that by approximately $14,000. We have the reduction of 1 custodial position at Auburn High School, saving approximately $40,000. The redeployment of a secretary from the operating budget to revolving accounts, saving approximately $18,000.
Sorry, Dr. Brunel, could you just go back to that one slide? What was the last one?
$18,000 redeploying a secretary who is paid currently in FY9. Half of her time is paid from the operating, which is this $18,000, and half is currently being paid through revolving accounts. We moved forward, putting all of her salary to be paid from revolving accounts, as that is the primary function of her job that she currently does.
Wayne?
On the custodial position there, is that one that there now, or is that a person that would be leaving?
It
In other
is,
words, is it a layoff?
the position is currently there right now. However, the person has been out on leave. So they have been functioning with what you will see next year functioning at Auburn High School will be the same number of custodians who are currently there right now. So it is a position that's in the budget. We're eliminating it because the person has not been in. They've been on an extended leave. And we've not been providing a substitute for him or her.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. In this budget, there is 1 new position that has been added, and that is an ABA at Mary D. Stone School. This position is in direct response to student needs and mandated per individual education plans or IEPs. The cost for this new position is $22,400. As a school, we believe in doing all that we can to educate our children locally in our own schools. In addition, legally, we have a mandate to provide the least restrictive environment for our students. And with the support of an ABA, an Applied Behavior Analysis Instructional Assistant, we will be able to accomplish that. There is also 1 restructured position. There is no impact to the budget monetarily, though, for this position. We currently have an ELL coordinator's position in the budget, in the FY 2009 budget. We propose to restructure that to a curriculum director. One of his or her responsibilities would be the oversight of English learner education, along with curriculum and grants. The addition of this position, or let me take that back, it's not an addition. The restructuring of this position was one that we believe strongly in its importance in helping us as a district to move forward, but is also in direct response to the strategic plan.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I'd like to too.
Janie?
With the EQA audit, they said they recommended the ELE teacher, right? Isn't that where that came out of?
Yeah.
So if this person is handling more than one function, does that still suffice?
We would need to ensure that the person has their ELL certification through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So that would be an expectation that we would set for that position, or allow them an opportunity, as the Department of Ed does, for them to earn that certification. We are fortunate in the district to have a staff member who currently has that certification, so we must employ someone who has that certification.
So as long as it's okay for them to serve both functions,
It
that's
is.
my question?
It would be. We currently are what would be characterized as a low incidence district in terms of English language learner population. We have 55 students who have been identified as requiring some support in this area. What we have done, and you'll see in your budget packet, and as the specifics are rolled out to you by the different administrators, that we have ELL tutor positions in there. So they would be providing the direct services to students next year with this person. And this is actually a similar model to other area community schools and how they are running this.
Thank you.
I've got a question, please. So currently, the ELL coordinator will now become the curriculum director.
Correct.
Okay. With the added responsibilities, is there an increase in that person's salary?
Yes.
Okay, and that's
Actually, what
accounted
would
for?
happen is, I would envision that we would
Oh,
repost
okay.
this
Okay.
position, that it would be titled as a curriculum director, or the title we could certainly decide, but that there would be an increase, because it would be obviously an increase in duties and responsibilities. So it wouldn't result in an increase in the FY 2010 budget, because we would carry forward the salary already in there, which is the $72,123, and we would supplement that with school choice funds of $23,877 for a total salary of $96,000.
Okay, great.
I have a question. You're taking that from school choice, but obviously that school choice money was being used for something else.
Mm-hmm.
What are we now taking away?
This year, what we are using, and we will continue, as you'll see as we go forward, Mr. Garneau's position, when we restored that earlier this school year, half of his salary is paid out of the operating and half is paid out of school choice. We're recommending that continue for next year, with the addition, and that's about $45,000 or so. With the addition of this, those two numbers combined are going to take up much of our school choice money. I would put a word of caution. I think any time we use school choice funds, which are not a guaranteed revenue stream for us, to supplement operating costs, there's a risk involved in that. We are anticipating that we are going to have students who will continue to want to come to Auburn High School, which is the only school currently that has school choice. That's something we're comfortable anticipating that that's going to continue. But there certainly are other items that we've had to move out. One of the things that we did earlier this school year, new desks and materials were required at Auburn High School. They weren't appropriated in the FY 2009 budget, so those were paid for from school choice funds. But this amount, plus Mr. Garneau's salary, will pretty much, will probably leave us about $20,000 or so, and you'll see as we roll out where we anticipate using that money. In effect, every line item was scrutinized and pared to the degree possible, and we continually asked ourselves this question: how will this directly impact students and their achievement? As we move forward in the budget process, you will be seeing this morning, there will be presentations by some of the administrators. Today you will see a presentation regarding the central administration budget, facilities budget, pupil services budget, and technology. On Monday, January 12th, starting at 6 p.m., will be fine arts, athletics, Auburn Middle, and Auburn High School. And finally, on Wednesday, January 14th at 6 p.m., the elementary schools will do a budget presentation, including Packagug, Mary D., Julia Bancroft, and Bryn Mawr School. Once you agree on a number to send forward, we need to submit that as per the town charter to the executive secretary and to the town accountant. This is actual language derived directly from the charter. It is my recommendation at the conclusion of the budget presentations that you will see over the course of today and the next two meetings, that we send forward a draft budget to the executive secretary and town accountant. The leadership team recommends the budget, which is $1,850 less than the 2009 appropriated amount. At a February meeting of the school committee, I would suggest that you set the date for the public hearing. And I'm suggesting that you wait because there are an awful lot of unknowns currently. The town is projecting, as are many other communities, a 10% reduction in state aid. We do not yet have official word from the governor's office. On January 7th, Governor Patrick did file legislation to be granted expanded 9C powers. The legislature has not yet acted on it. Once we do set a public hearing date, I would recommend that we reserve the Auburn High School auditorium for this public hearing. I would recommend that we send invitations to each of the town meeting members so that they are well informed and have the opportunity to ask questions regarding each and every specific line item. Following each administrator's presentation, I would suggest and recommend that we put these presentations on the Auburn Public Schools website, as we will with the actual numbers and the budget as it is created. We will regularly update that portion of the website so that we keep everyone in the community informed of the school department's needs and budget requests for FY 2010. Doing so will ensure that the school committee's goal of engaging in a transparent budget process will be accomplished. In conclusion for my part before the other presentations begin, I think it's very important for us all to be reminded that despite the challenging economic times before us, as a school department, we have an obligation, and one that we take immensely seriously, to continue to strive toward educational excellence. We believe as a leadership team that this budget is fiscally responsible, yet does keep us moving forward. As Pat Riley said, excellence is the gradual result of always striving to do better. That model of continuous improvement to which I regularly speak. And I thank you certainly, school committee, and the entire Auburn community for your continued support of the Auburn Public Schools. I would be happy to answer questions, or we could have the central office budget presentation shared with you.
I do, please. I didn't realize that we were asking questions as we went through, so I'm just going to ask you to back up for a second.
Sure.
There was a line item of approximately $21,000 from school supplies and textbooks.
Yes.
I know that's really a concern of parents when you talk about cutting textbooks. Can you just kind of enlighten us as to what they wanted to do and how that's going to impact the students' learning?
You will see actually as the principals present their budgets, and they will have specific information. But what we attempted to do, because we, believing that we need to move forward with teachers and staff being first and foremost of the utmost importance, but that there are a certain level of materials that students absolutely need to have. I'm not going to try and find the actual
Oh, no,
slide,
you don't,
I'm sorry.
yeah, no,
Okay.
that's fine.
So one of the items that comes to mind is at the high school, there was a reduction for chemistry textbooks. It would be providing new chemistry textbooks, and Mr. Hanfield, in checking with his department chair, Mrs. Estefan, believed that they could do one other year waiting for those. At Auburn Middle School, one of the reductions that was made in textbooks was they were hoping to provide a set of English language books, English language arts books, so they could have a set at home and also a set in school. That is, I don't want to say it's a luxury, but it's something that certainly in these times we just simply can't afford to do. So those are the two primary pieces of it. We really worked to see, what we didn't want to do was create a budget that was so tight that we didn't have any flexibility to keep it moving forward. There is a requirement, there's a need for us to purchase certain materials each year, and that is reflected in this budget.
Okay, thank you. And if I may, just one other comment. Dr. Brunel, I think your presentation was extremely professional and very well thought out, and I think your approach and your plan going forward is everything that the community as a whole has always asked for. I've only been on the committee a couple of years, and this is the first time I've really seen a very extremely well thought out process incorporating the community and everybody going forward. So I want to thank you for that. I think this is going to be a really good budget process.
Thank
so
you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I do want to be sure to extend sincere appreciation to the entire leadership team, and certainly Mr. Dede, who has lived with my obsessive compulsive perhaps with all of this. So they've been terrific throughout this whole process. It is never easy to cut, but we chose in the beginning to see these challenges as opportunities and to open our books and ask for exactly what we needed, recognizing we're in tight times. So thank you, I appreciate that.
Wayne?
Excuse me. I would like to say the same thing. I thought it was great, your presentation. And the big thing with me is you seem to be striving to include everybody as a whole in the town, the residents, you know, the students. And I would like to thank you for starting to bring out more information to the townspeople so they understand. And you had said something about if you have any problems with line items or nothing, don't hesitate to get a hold of you. And this is the kind of things that I like to see, so it does get out to the public. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank your team for the great job.
Thank you very much.
Janie?
I'd also like to say, I think holding the public meeting in the auditorium at the high school and sending invitations to people is a great idea, because that way nobody can say they didn't know.
Dr. Brunel had talked to both Ron and I prior to this meeting, and her idea of having town meeting members coming in and going through it line by line, and then anyone who wants to put a hold on something, we would come back and explain it. So it will be a very transparent budget, that's for sure. Ron?
That's great.
Yeah, Mariel, and I don't really know how to ask this question. So listen to what I'm saying and see if you can tell me how I should ask it. The 2010 budget is an outgrowth of 2009. And it's not as though you were starting from scratch. And we look, even as we finish this, at a comparison with 2009. We have out there, and you've addressed it in the material that you gave us today, the specter that there might be aid cuts in 2009, never mind 2010 when we really expect them, but there might be some in 2009. If we have aid cuts, if we do have those in 2009, and we do have to change the 2009 budget, how, if at all, how does that affect the 2010 budget?
That, Mr. Party, is one of the other unknowns, and my reason also for saying let's push off, for a few weeks, a month or so, the actual public hearing where a firm number is set. Because that is one of the pieces that we're looking for, especially where the governor is seeking those expanded powers. As we began the 2010 budget process, we really went about that from a zero-based budgeting. So we looked at, let us look critically at every program in our schools, every department within our schools, and what do we need moving forward. So I'm comfortable at this point that the 2010 budget, moving forward, what we have recommended here, will suffice for us. Having said that, I'm anticipating, and certainly what the governor comes out with in terms of cuts for FY9 will be a strong indication of what we may be able to anticipate for 2010. And I think that information will come shortly thereafter, quite honestly, just because of the time constraints. It's a great concern for us, and Mr. O'Connor just earlier this week requested information on what might those cuts look like if you have to make a cut of 5%. Was a number that was selected. And my response to him, which was the best answer that I could give him, is I, as a superintendent, cannot unilaterally decide what cuts that would be, so that we'd need to go through the whole process of informing the school committee. I would imagine the school committee would direct me to meet with the leadership team to talk about where can we. I think, or I believe, that the fact that we put in place a budget freeze very early in FY9 will in some way insulate us from that, because we put holds or stops on purchase orders for some supplies and materials that teachers would like to have had in their classrooms, and unless it was an absolute emergency, we didn't put those forward. I'm hopeful that with when the governor does come out with those budget reductions for FY9, or I'm anticipating there may be some, that if they are, less than 5%, that I would recommend that we unfreeze the budget to allow teachers to purchase some of those things so that they have them on hand this year. It was items that they requested actually back in October of 2007 for this year. So my answer seems a bit convoluted, and I apologize, but there are just so many unknowns in this whole process and what it's going to look like. But I am comfortable going forward that 2010, the budget that we have created on its own, will keep us moving forward as a district.
Thank you.
Wayne?
I don't really have a question, but I just want to say something about these budget meetings. Last year we went through this process quite a bit, and we had very little residents had showed up. I'm hoping and recommending that they come to these meetings either support or against, and listen to what's going on with these budgets through the whole town. I would like to thank the chairman of the Finance Committee for being here today, and the other department heads that are here due to our budget. But there's really no residents here today, and it kind of just hardens me when we're going through such a magnitude of a budget. And I know people can watch at home, but it's much better when you're discussing the issue that the people come, and if they have a question or something, they can do it. And even when we got to the public hearing last year, it was kind of just hiding because we didn't have all that many people show up. I mean, we need your support to educate our children, but we need your support from the town to let us know how they feel and which way they feel we should go. And if they're not coming and showing up, then we're not getting the direction that we'd like to get. That's it. Thank you.
In response, if I may, through the chair, that when we do the public hearing at the auditorium, I would certainly will send an invitation to the town meeting members, but I would suggest that we do through the Auburn News, which is always wonderful to work with, that we advertise that this is an open meeting, as all of ours are, but that we post it that anyone can come and ask questions. And that was the way that in my previous district it was always done, and actually reading through each line item and allowing people in the audience to put a hold on it with any question.
Well, nothing on you. That's one of the reasons why I said in the beginning I was glad the way you did it is because you are focusing towards the community as a whole.
Right.
But I'm just trying to give a little more to the community to say, come on, let's do this.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Brunel, can you possibly give us at the next meeting the hard copy of the presentation?
We actually have all of them. I'm sorry we didn't pass them out. I have hard copies of the PowerPoint presentations of all the ones that you'll see today.
Okay, so
Yes.
I'll go get those for everybody.
I think I did.
Yeah, if you want to make, okay, my article. Great, thank you. Thank you very much, and I will now turn it over to Mr. Didi, who will present to you the central administration budget.
Can you wait just a second, Dan, until we get that? Because it's a lot easier to make notes when you're...
This is a complete...
And the central administration budget is under 11.
There was blue paper in the garbage.
These are on blue.
Technology's on blue.
So everyone should have the presentation that was just made, the central administration, the facilities operation and maintenance budget, the Department of Pupil Services and Technology. So you should have 5. Okay? Thanks, Mr. Didi, for waiting for us.
Good morning, everyone. Prior to examining the costs within the central office budget, I'd like to make a few comments, if I may, on the role the business office plays in the budgeting process. My staff and I played a key role in the ongoing support of both operations and instructional management. To that end, central office provided a key role in concert with Mr. Fahey in the development of the FY10 budget, which ultimately resulted in cost savings to the district. Number 1, we implemented a 3-year contract with Constellation New England as our supplier for electricity at a cost of 11.1 cents a kilowatt hour. Madam Chair, this question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Page.
Yes, I had read it in the Telegram Gazette, and somebody had called me on it about there was percentage from Clinton, I believe, that they got it at 8.5%. I know we had signed a contract, but is there any thing in the contract where we can have movement on, or is this something, should we go with, is Clinton more collaborative grouping than what we're in, and is there a way that we can get into that group to save the money? Because if you're going at 8.5%, we're saving some money.
Through the chair, I'd be happy to answer that now.
Okay.
Ironically, too, I saw that article in the paper last week, and ironically, the collaborative is the Education Collaborative Greater Boston, which happens to be my previous employer. So I chuckled when I saw their public stewardship in terms of the dollars. If I may make an analogy, last summer, early fall, the market was the utility market, the oil, electricity, natural gas, etc., was at a peak, but it was beginning to take a downturn. As you know from previous discussions, Auburn partnered with several other districts in terms of the procurement of electricity. This is the first time that I'm aware that the district engaged in a contract with a supplier to lock in for a period of up to 3 years. An analogy, when we opened the oil bids back on May 4th of 2008, we paid $3.73 a gallon. The business managers opted to reject that bid, roll the dice, for lack of a better term, and look to rebid that in late summer, which we did. We opened the bids back in September 4, and we received a price of $3.30 a gallon, which was a huge savings in a very short period of time. At that time, too, again, the market was beginning to take a downturn. Oil, electricity, natural gas. I would argue, yes, had we held off in terms of securing a contract with an electrical supplier, perhaps up until November, or yes, in December, that our rate, our kilowatt hour, would be 8.5 cents plus per gallon, kilowatt hour. However, we didn't do that, and I think what it suggests too is that it suggests the volatility, the flexibility within the market.
Janie?
When did we start getting this 11 cents kilowatt?
December 1st.
December, so we started getting it December 1st?
Yes.
And if we had not gone with the collaborative, how much would we be paying?
I'd have to check the default rate, but probably in the area. I'm conjecturing that the 8.5 that Mr. Page has referenced is the current market rate.
Okay.
That would have been, if that was in the paper in January, the procurement was probably held in early to mid-December, so that would have been at about that rate.
Because we were paying something like 21 cents or something like that.
Last year, we had two separate kilowatt-hour rates. We paid 12 cents a kilowatt-hour, and then the latter part of the fiscal year, when the market began to climb significantly, we were paying 16 cents a kilowatt-hour.
Wayne?
I'm not arguing a point whether it was this, that, or the other thing. I'm just saying that it was 8.5%, and if in the future, we already did sign a contract for 3 years, but if there's
Yes.
a better way, if we go into a bigger group to cut our rate down on the next contract, or if there's something in the contract that we can do something, fine. But if we can't, I just want to make it known that next time we do a contract, that if there's a better avenue to go with a bigger group where we can get less percentage. That's all I'm saying.
Just, I agree, and I appreciate that. And I think what, with so many of these things, it's timing. And at what time do you go out to bid? I've got friends who signed oil contracts, and they're paying $4 and some odd cents a gallon, and they, and naturally they're not able to get out of those contracts, and it's $1.79. But to your point of making sure that we are aggressively seeking the best prices, we absolutely commit to doing that.
Thank you.
On the heels of Dr. Brunel's comment on timing, again, we pushed up the procurement for oil for FY10 the better part of 5 months. Again, recognizing the downturn in the market, we were locked in at a rate of $1.7926 a gallon, which is a significant savings over this year's current budget and per gallon rate. Also, in terms of timing, we are in the process of procuring our natural gas rate for FY10. Natural gas and electricity go hand in hand. I am confident that the rate, which we should have within a week or two at the latest for FY10, will be equal to the FY9 rate of 12.66 a decatherm or less, and most likely less. As we go forward too, again, we are looking to take advantage of the large group purchasing through the French River Education Center for classroom supplies, classroom materials, printing supplies, paper supplies, and yes, athletic supplies and materials. As we look to develop the various building budgets for utilities, the oil, electricity, the water, the sewage, I worked very closely with Mr. Fahey to see what support we could garner from our building rental accounts as a means of offsetting custodial supplies, materials, and building maintenance and repair costs. The leadership team worked incredibly hard to reduce the budget over the past several weeks. As newspapers and the electronic media reported the grim economic news almost on a daily basis, it was clear to the leadership team that outside revenues were required to support the buildings. To that end, the leadership team and I looked at a number of revolving accounts to offset costs within the budget. These included all building rental accounts, the Nichols College rental account, the preschool, kindergarten, satellite, and Galaxy revolving accounts, school choice, Medicaid, gift accounts, and private grants. There were several cost adjustments made in the central office budget for FY10. As Dr. Brunel noted earlier, the first adjustment concerned a full-time secretary. Currently, we have a full-time secretary whose time is split between the operating budget at 0.5 FTE and the balance of whose time is split between revolving accounts. We are shifting that person's position in its entirety to revolving accounts for FY10, thus saving the better part of $18,000 plus in the operating budget. Secondly, my office currently has a 0.5 bookkeeping vacancy. That position will be eliminated in FY10. The responsibilities of that position will be dispersed to other secretaries within central office. Thirdly, I reduced my support cost budget by $1,850. Fourthly, we reduced Dr. Brunel's support cost budget by $8,650. And finally, we reduced the central office utility cost by $20,805. As we move forward, it'll be incumbent upon myself and Dr. Brunel to continue to practice the oversight of the economic and political landscape, and in particular, how the decisions which are made on Beacon Hill will impact the FY10 budget for the Auburn Public Schools. Thank you. Happy to answer questions.
Janie.
Can you just tell me some of the things that are into reducing the utility costs of central office by $20,000?
Primarily, it's oil. In the central office budget, we started the year, we had put in an additional $10,000 for oil, again, in anticipating the need for that this year. When we went to town meeting back in October, the central office was not one of the buildings that we were looking for to add oil to. The other reduction was in electricity as well.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Leanne?
Just a suggestion. I know you're trying to keep these to one page, but even with my glasses on.
Well, the lights are off. I was going to say the same thing.
This is really difficult, and if this is what we're going to present to our invitees to the budget, this is really hard to read.
It is, and the only problem is if it's not on one page, it's really hard to follow. If you look down, it would be rather hard to follow. But I don't know how we do it. But
I don't either. But this is I do understand what you're trying to do, but we may have to turn the lights on here.
We might have to turn the lights on.
It's the width of it.
It's the width. Exactly.
There are so many columns.
Dan, as we're asked, I assume, do we have more questions on this? Do we want to turn the lights on so we can look at this a little bit better? Thank you very much.
We're saving electricity, man. That's what it's funny about.
I know, but
That is much better.
we're blindly going through that.
A lot more than that.
I do have some questions, so but I'll ask them after everybody else. So does anybody else have any? No? Eric, feel free if you want to ask any questions. Please feel free to do that. I think Leanne asked one of the questions Janie asked one of the questions. I I would also like to know what kind of things you did to reduce the support costs for both you and Dr. Brunel.
In terms of my budget, I reduced that $5,000. I had this year appropriated $2,850. I zeroed out several supplies and material line items, and on the premise that I would piggyback with Dr. Brunel and FY10 in terms of those materials. We also reduced Dr. Brunel's superintendent's budget in terms of supplies, materials, publications for FY10 as well.
Okay, and I do understand all the reasons for that, but Dr. Brunel, I mean, some of those publications, I am well aware of the fact that some of those publications are very important for you to have. So I assume that you've been very careful to make sure that you've got the things that you need.
I have, no, and I appreciate that, and I have. I will still be able to get the periodicals to which I subscribe. It may require me to purchase some new books that come out on my own, but I'm very willing to do that. I keep a large library of educational materials on my own. So I think what I felt was very important, and I know Mr. Dede and all of us agreed that it was important that each of us scrutinized our line items to tighten it up, and even in terms of my dues, to be sure that the money that is there remaining will allow me to continue to be part of the formal Mass Association of School Superintendents. So that is there. It may require that I not be able to join one other for a year, but I'm willing to forgo that in light of these times. But I appreciate your asking.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Dan, did you say that the cut in the bookkeeper, that was a position that you were planning to fill, and so you're not going to fill that now?
That is correct.
Okay. And so people are doing those jobs already, or now you're adding to people's
We aren't
loads?
adding, but we will redeploy some functions there. The secretary, for example, who is being shifted to revolving accounts at 100%, will assume some billing functions that she currently does now in that capacity. The functions that she'll be assuming will be synonymous with the account that she's being paid under, i.e. kindergarten billing, for example.
Okay. Janie?
One question. Dan, I can see one of these accounts. I hate to get this specific when not everybody has the same book that we do, but some of the money that was appropriated at the October town meeting, for instance, for the crossing guards, has that now been incorporated in the
Yes, it is.
Okay.
You will see as you go through your book, each cost center, that the last line item for each building under support cost, I included the appropriation from the October 27th fall meeting. And that will be, for example, oil. In our case, was crossing guides. For the middle school, it was the support services there as well. If you recall, for the FY09 budgeting process, we had budgeted $48,000 plus for crossing guides. We reduced that to the $38,000. In a town meeting, $10,000 was appropriated, and the FY10 budget that we're coming forward with reflects that additional $10,000 for the $48,000.
Leanne?
I've got a couple questions. First of all, on the first page of your line item budget, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like the seventh, what is a sub-scheduler district-wide? What is that?
Through the chair, we have an instructional assistant who is paid an additional stipend to assume what, in some respects, is almost a full-time job to coordinate the daily sub-listings in all district buildings. That particular individual receives the compensation of an instructional assistant plus that additional figure that you see there for the purpose of coordinating daily sub-calls in the buildings.
Okay. And then on the second page, under the school committee costs, we have school committee dues of $15,000. What in the world is
Through
that?
the chair, we use that to pay for the mask memberships.
They're
We-
that much? The mass memberships are that much?
Pretty significant invoice. We also use that for the various trainings that the committee attends during the year. We also use that as well to compensate the committee for travel also. Yes?
Have we actually, like, used that much money in the past? Has
Through the
it-
chair, the full appropriation, no. Three-quarters of the appropriation, yes.
Okay, explain that. I don't understand what you just said there.
Not the 15,000, but perhaps a better part of 10 to 12,000, yes.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so maybe we could save ourselves a couple $1,000s there. I'm just saying, that's a line that we could look at if we're looking at a couple $1,000s or something.
Through the
If you're
chair.
averaging about 12, maybe we could save 3.
We
or
did
something.
make some arbitrary reductions in your budget. However, I'd be happy to look at that again with the committee's approval.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
fine with it.
To further reduce.
I mean, if you're saying we're averaging about 12, maybe we could, that's really, I mean, I didn't realize we were costing that much, so it's just a line we can look at.
You probably would like, I'd like to see it broken down, because I'd like to see
Yeah.
what the Massachusetts Association of School Committees dues are and what
Yeah.
our travel is. I've never put in for travel. I don't know what we've put in for travel.
November conference,
The
if I
November
may, through the
conference.
chair, attending
was only
that
like
conference,
100 and
there's
something
cost
bucks.
to that.
There was travel for the
Well, there's
Leanne
there's a-
and Mr. Page.
Yes, and there
Okay.
is a fee to attend as well. But we could certainly check that and look and see if they're anticipating an increase in dues for MASC too. We can get
Yeah.
back to you on that.
Okay, it's just, something we could look at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, Mr. Dede, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dede.
Facilities.
Okay. At this time, Mr. Fahey, I apologize. It is.
Yes.
Mr. Fahey.
At this time, it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce to you my cohort in crime. I say that with the greatest respect and admiration, Mr. Fahey, Director of Facilities Management.
He's number 7. Lucky number 7 now.
Thanks, Mr. Dees. Good morning, guys.
Can we just turn off the lights,
Thanks for
please?
getting me up next, because actually I
Thank you.
gotta ask about getting it on. I was a little nervous when Eric's presentation came up.
The down arrow.
Facilities is under 7.
Okay.
Yeah, he's number 7.
Before I get started, if I may, if I just make a quick comment on the fuel savings, that the question that you asked here at West Street. One of the things that we did this year is we installed these systems on each of our burners called the Rentar system. And what this Rentar fuel savings catalyst does is it atomizes the oil to burn much cleaner. And therefore, we inherit a great savings each year. It's something that's been around for a very long time. They pretty much use it on farm equipment, generators, things of that nature, and now they're getting into the market. So we did some research over the summer, and came highly recommended. So we went for it, and we're anticipating and hoping a great savings for this year. Okay. With that being said, facility operation, maintenance, and budget for 2010. The goals for the facilities operations and maintenance are to support the education of students throughout a clean, safe, and healthy environment. Provide a regular preventive maintenance and capital improvements in all of our schools, and use our fiscal resources wisely. Accomplishments to date. Ongoing maintenance and capital improvements in all our schools. We collaborate with the Sheriff's Department to coordinate summer projects in our building. We ensure significant levels of staffing to achieve the goals of the department. Successfully management of the facility budget. Centralized procurement of supplies and services.
If I may, through the chair, the centralized, the procurement of supplies and services, is that also within the collaborative? Do you also?
Yes, it is.
Collaborative for that stuff? Okay, thank you.
Continue a partnership with the project management team and the school building committee. Closely monitor the energy cost and usage of all our school buildings. Participate in workshops for school construction, reform, asbestos training, and MCPPO regulations. Participate with custodians in the union contract on a regular basis. Work closely with building principals to achieve district goals in the facilities operation and maintenance. Ongoing maintenance of all our buildings. Maintain staffing levels. Continued collaborations with town administration, the district and school personnel, and outside agencies. Work with the MSBA as it pertains to the Auburn Middle School. This one keep popping up all over the place because it's so important. Closely scrutinize our energy costs and usage. I think I must have just said that 10 times, and I probably say it in my sleep constantly. Actively participate in decision-making processes for the future of all our schools. Continue to make a concentrated effort to operate our schools in an environmentally friendly fashion and work towards a greener district. It's pretty much the same every year. These are our costs that are pretty much out of our control, but we seem to be getting a very good handle on at least our electrical energy. Our water and sewage cost basically stays the same each year. Fuel costs, oil, propane, and natural gas. And our high school service contracts. We get a beautiful building, and it requires some high-tech service.
If I may, through the chair, what are some of those high school service contracts?
We have a very sophisticated fire alarm system that pretty much our hands are tied as far as doing the work on it ourselves. So we have it was installed by Simplex. So Simplex, if there's a problem, they have to come in and obviously make the repairs. There's continuously monitoring. We have an elaborate phone system that the days where we could just take a phone and plug it in, when one breaks, are gone. We're forced now to, not forced, this is technology. We're now required to call on a vendor, have them come program the phone, program a voicemail. All these things, we have a clock and bell system that's pretty much the same way.
Okay.
So a lot of these things are pretty much out of our hands, and we have to rely on a professional.
And when we do those contracts, it's like they just say this is your set rate. There's no negotiation.
What we do is we monitor throughout the year, like the amount of calls that we have, and we put it out to bid each year. However, on the fire alarm system, Simplex is a proprietary system. It goes right to Simplex. Our HVAC equipment, what we do is we procure that each year. We monitor the service, and we put it out to bid.
Okay.
And we get the best price.
Okay.
For that.
Thank you.
There's a lot of other things. We have a building sprinkled, so we have to have it monitored by a sprinkler company. So there's a lot of hidden costs to operate that great building. And
Janie?
Okay.
I have a couple questions for you. As the warranty contracts on the high school start to expire, how are we picking up the services that those warranties cover?
Good question. There'll be actually a lot of these things are high-ticket items, and they'll be put through our capital. So we're starting to put them in through 2014. We have some of our equipment. We're anticipating failure, and hopefully it doesn't happen. So maybe we could transfer the funds when that time comes, if the equipment is still running. But that's how we have to make it work.
I have another question. I know this is going to be kind of an awkward question, but we always you always say, oh, this building was beautiful at this time, but because we delayed maintenance, the building fell into disrepair, etc. I'm just going to ask you sort of a blanket question. Are we delaying maintenance on buildings in the name of saving in the operating budget that in the long run is going to cost us?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Not at this point in time. I'm just going to throw this out there as a good example. We have, when the building was built, it was designed for 2 500-gallon PVI water heaters. Okay, we have one of them right now that actually let go as in there's a leak. Okay, it's covered into warranty. We have a 6-year warranty with this particular piece of equipment. The company is honoring that warranty. However, we've been running right now with one water heater. We don't need 2 500-gallon PVI water heaters to heat that school. I mean, I'm letting the cat out of the bag right now, but we've been like this for probably 2.5 months, only running on one. So my recommendation is going to be, let's get this new one in, okay? Shut it off, keep running the old one. We'll work off of that warranty till that expires, and then when the time comes, click that over to the other one. So there is a sequence of operation that we are trying to keep that building pristine.
Good.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Facility operation and maintenance cost summary by school. Here it is. There's that big number again. It keeps coming back to bite me. We kept that number in there. Now, as we've heard from Mr. Dede, these rates are coming down. But however, our kilowatt usage is going to go up. I mean, we're monitoring it, but the more activity we have in there, the more kilowatt hours we're going to be putting out there. So that's why we left that number in there.
Can you stop for a second, Janie?
I'm sorry, Joe. I know we put in a system to monitor when we use electricity where?
Yes.
Right? Has that helped?
It helps us keep track of the day-to-day kilowatt usage, right? Yesterday, for example, we used 5,000, I'm making the last part of it up, 776 kilowatt hours compared to this morning when we started the day off at 1,235. So we do have that type of device that we can monitor it, which helps us make these projections.
But it's a 24-hour period. You can't see how much is used hourly or?
Yes, I can. As I said, this morning, as of 8 o'clock, that's what we used.
Oh, then I misunderstood what you were saying. So we can see it hourly?
We can see it hourly. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting this same type of device on our auditorium, so we'll know exactly what the kilowatt usage is going to be from, like, say, that HVAC equipment that's in there. Now, technically, we could do that off this this whole meter that we have system but we're still going to be pulling energy from other parts of the building that we think are not on, but actually are on. So we really can't get that exact kilowatt hour, if that makes any sense to you. In other words, if we wanted, the way this meter is now, if we wanted to monitor the auditorium for, say, 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning for that 1 hour, we're going to be, if the refrigeration comes on in the kitchen, that's going to turn it on. The exit lights, if there's a refrigerator in Mr. Hansfield's office, that might come on. So it wouldn't be a fair number for that. So, but through Yankee Technology, through the system that we have, we can incorporate a smaller meter onto just the auditorium so we can monitor that.
Because you made an interesting statement. You said as we use that facility more, our costs will go up, and they really shouldn't, because we should be transferring those costs to the people who are using the facility.
Yes.
So,
however, you're right. You're absolutely right. However, the other night, a good example, I think it was Wednesday night, or maybe Thursday night, there wasn't an empty parking spot at that place.
And it was a school function.
It was a school function.
Exactly.
And it's a good point, because actually we were running that particular day, I think it was 5,800 and, I got to make up the last couple of numbers, 22, compared to the day before. Compared to the day before, when there was roughly 1,000 kilowatts less. So I guess we got to decide, or we got to figure out, when it's not our school being used by school functions.
And you make a good point, because anytime, I know the middle school, I don't know about the elementary schools, when they have a concert, when they have, like they had the awards assembly the other night, they're coming to the high school. So so you're right, the cost will go up, and they're due to us using our facilities. Other schools are coming in and using it. So that's a good point.
Yeah, and to kind of go along with that, for instance, Thursday night, there was a basketball game, high school basketball. But not just was the basketball game going on, you had private music lessons going on, and you had Nichols College having their class, so there was not just the school function, but you also had these outside functions going on as well. So how do you kind of deviate between what actually was used for the school function basketball game as compared to
well, that's what we have to look at when
parts.
we're looking at rates for these places to come in. And
Again, $95,000 for the natural gas. But again, like I said, we're reducing, we're doing everything we can to reduce our numbers. Supplies, although you see it $10,000 there, which is a $2,000 deduction from last year, as Mr. Didi has stated previously, that $2,000 would come from another account that they have in that school, whether it would be a revolving account or something that we can go off of that. And the same thing with our building repairs. And by reducing our custodians down to 7, I'm sure this is a big concern, because you people did advocate 2 years ago when I stood up here and said that we needed 2 more additional when that school opened. And that being said, that was off of the recommendation from different schools that were out there with similar square footage. It was under the recommendation from not a project management team, but from Mr. Norton and Mike McClarney. And I mean, they also recommended the maintenance staff to go along with that. And we said, no, you know what, I think we'll be okay with 2. And as it stands, when the fiscal year started, by the time we got around to fill that 1 vacancy, and that 1 vacancy actually was to be 2 days at the high school and 3 days to be floating for the other schools if someone was out sick. And we're able to make that happen with our part-time person that we have here. So we didn't, as we stated earlier, that that position is vacant right now, and you know, I don't want to be deceitful and say, yeah, we need another one, when actually we don't. So we talked over with the head custodians and Mr. Hansfield, and we all feel very comfortable we can maintain the highest level of cleanliness with what we have right now. Auburn Middle School. If you want, I can list these numbers, but I don't think I have to. I'll just go right down to the big one down the bottom.
I do have one question about the middle school, though. Now that we've fixed that, there was a big water issue up there, am I correct? With
Yes.
main break?
Yep.
And so that water line
It does
reflects that
show the
improvement?
reflection, yes.
Okay.
Because not only was the water skyrocketed, but it was also the sewage, because what goes in goes out.
Usually.
So
Good.
we kept that maintenance repair. That's our building in need, and that's the number that we need to keep this, keep the Band-Aids going. Custodians, we run with 3. Bryn Mawr School. Again, we keep our supplies down. They pretty much, know pretty much what they want each year. Julia Bancroft, old building requiring a little bit more maintenance. Nothing more than what we asked for the previous year.
Mr. Fahey, can I ask you, the electrical on Julia Bancroft, it's $27,000. I'm looking and I'm comparing it to the other elementary schools. Can you tell me why the electricity is higher at that high school, do you think?
The high school?
I mean, I'm sorry, at Julia Bancroft,
It's higher than,
than the other elementary schools. I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not.
No, that's
trying to-
okay.
I'm just curious as to, it's $27,000 now, Packagug is 22.
yeah.
Do you have any insight to that? I mean, I'm putting you on the spot.
No, I don't. The only thing I can just tell you is, no, I don't, actually. If I say it, I'd be making it up. I'll certainly look into it. I know we have 2 buildings, and we have multiple meters.
That's what it is.
It's
They have an upper office and a school down at the
Yeah.
bottom, like administration office on top of the hill, and then the school down the bottom, so that's probably why you get the fluctuation.
Yeah, and actually, as Mr. Didi just stated, building usage, Julia Bancroft at night, I believe they are using their gym a little bit more. Packagug, for some reason, I don't know why, it's freshly painted. We're still looking for takers. Make sure you tell the principal at Packagug that. But that's probably it. Probably the usage and probably the multiple meters.
Okay, thanks.
I know, our custodians are very conscious. They are at night. They're trying to shut off the lights when they're done with their rooms. Once people are through.
No, and don't get me wrong, I wasn't implying that somebody was not
Oh, no, I'm
being
not- I
diligent.
understand.
I was just curious if it was I don't know. I thought it was something to do with the facility itself. No. Any other questions? Ron?
Joe, at the, in the most recent ice emergency, we used the high school as a shelter. Are we using any of the other buildings? We'd previously used the middle school, if I remember correctly, but now we're using a high school.
Now, what we did was, and actually, that storm, I met with Alan Dean and Tony Pellegrino. They felt that the high school was the suitable place.
It certainly is. It's certainly, if you brought people in, you would certainly want to use that building, even though it's the more expensive of our buildings to operate like that.
Right. Unfortunately, the middle school, I guess it has been the shelter for as long as I can remember, but in the lower level, the bathrooms are not handicap accessible, and that was a big concern. However, there is an elevator there that they could go up, but they felt that the high school was
Yeah, I
a
would
good
have no
place to be.
disagreement with that. I think we should just recognize when we look at costs as to why the high school costs are considerably more than they are in any of the other buildings, but there are a lot of factors that go into that we're using that a lot more, and a lot of that is, I guess, community use.
Wayne?
Like Ron said, community use, that's fine. But the thing is, Joe, and like the ice storm, you had the state of emergency. Now you can put in for money to get that back. Can you do that on a shelter issue? Because I know, like, if you got trees and everything down, everything else, you can put in for emergency money from the state. Can you do that with a shelter issue?
I know we've done that in the years past at the middle school. We put in all our expenses to the town on that. I don't know if that came down yet for the high school yet.
We actually are compiling that information to go through Mr. Dean, yes, to see if it can be refunded.
Okay, thank you.
While we're on the subject, can we just maybe have, at another meeting, have maybe an update on the shelter and, you know, what that meant to the school and the safety factors that, you know, what we used for safety precautions as far as having people in the building, things like that. It would be nice, I think, for the school committee to know how we run those shelters and how they affect our students, if in fact they do.
Sure.
Okay, I know this is what everyone loves to see each year, the fuel consumptions. It's not the consumptions, but it's what we paid, dating back to 2005 when it was $1.04, $6, $1.68. Kept climbing, and now, geez, now we're almost back down to 2006.
Get it back under $1, you'll be my hero.
Okay.
Forget it.
It's going to start going up.
And these are costs that are already in our budget each year. Custodial overtime for the building checks, emergency calls, and this is all money well spent. We've had situations when we did get calls over the weekend, and God forbid we didn't have anyone checking on our buildings. We would be we would have certainly not be open for school that following Monday. I can guarantee that.
Joe, what do they do for the overtime for snow removal?
The overtime for snow removal is if they get called in, say say a storm that's coming tonight or tomorrow. What they'll do is they'll depending on what the weather's going to be like, they'll either come in tomorrow night, I'm sorry, and get the walkways, get everything up and going for school to open first thing in the morning. Otherwise, what they do is, sometimes what happens, all our elementary schools, we only have one custodian. So they're under the gun by the time they get there to get the snow. Different schools are different. The poor guy at Packaghar's got to do around the whole building. So it's tough for one man to do in a short period of time. So what they'll do is they'll call in the other guy and give him help.
Thank you.
Okay. There you go.
Through the chair. I was, as you were doing your presentation, Joe, I just happened to be going through the line item budget, and maybe the custodian overtime is in your budget, but each individual custodian, what are they, a line item in each school? I don't see the custodians listed here.
Each of them
So
is-
why do we do that? Why do we break out the overtime under his budget, yet the regular salaries are in each school?
I don't believe it's in my budget. It's just there just to
Presentation.
just for presentation purposes. Beef up the slides.
I guess I don't understand, because it's listed.
Right, well,
Should the overtime be split amongst all the schools instead of being listed in yours? Is that?
What she's saying is, in this line item budget, there's a line item that says custodian overtime.
$13,000.
Dan
District,
can speak on that. I believe a lot comes out of the district-wide account, same thing like.
because
Oh,
you
okay,
wouldn't
because
know.
they may go from one school to
Right.
another, it
Right.
wouldn't necessarily, I'm sorry, Dan wants to speak, I think.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Through the chair, that is correct. In each building, you will see the FTE and the compensation for the custodians. You'll also see under that listing there a figure for the building checks, and that figure is contractual. In terms of the overtime rates, that is a cost that we put into for district-wide support, and that cost fluctuates during the year. If we have a mild winter, just using snow as an example, the amount of time that Joe would be tapping into that would be nominal. But this year is by no means that exception.
Okay. If I may, while you're up there, Mr. Didi, through the chair, this is kind of getting off track of Joe's presentation, but as we're going through these presentations, we talk about revolving accounts. Just for the community, so that everybody understands what a revolving account is, could you just kind of give a definition of that? Because it's referenced a lot, and I just want to make sure people
Through the
understand.
chair, a revolving account, by definition, is a revenue source outside of the operating budget, and the monies are specific to that function, i.e., we have building rental revolving accounts, where if an outside group looks to use a classroom, looks to use the gymnasium, what have you, they will pay us for the use of that space, and those dollars are deposited into a revolving account. And by nature of the term revolving, there is no beginning, there is no ending, where those monies can carry forward from year to year throughout the cycle. We also, and again, most of our revolving accounts relate to building rentals. All of our buildings have a rental account. The high school has also a Nichols College rental account. But we also have other outside sources. For example, our circuit breaker, which is our reimbursement through special education, that is treated, again, as a revolving account because we can carry forward that money from year to year.
Thank you. I just wanted the community to understand that.
Jeannie?
But Dan, is it also correct that then that revenue source can only be spent on specific functions?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, that's absolutely correct. In other words, we can only spend built-in rental revolving revenues at the high school for Auburn High School. If there's an issue at the middle school and our operating budget is depleted or very nominal, and their built-in rental revolving is nominal, we cannot use the high school revenues to address the issue at the middle school if there isn't a source within the operating budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fahey, any more questions for Mr. Fahey? Mr. Fahey, go ahead.
If I may, just for the school committee and for everybody in the listening audience, I have to give tremendous and sincere kudos to Mr. Fahey. I'm not sure if everyone is aware of all that Mr. Fahey does. Certainly in his capacity as the Director of Facilities and Maintenance, he oversees, he helps to procure, he works with Mr. Didi. We heard today about how they've secured a great price for oil. But Mr. Fahey also will go, no matter what time of day or night it is, if there is a leak and some plumbing work needs to be done, some minor plumbing, Mr. Fahey goes and does that. So he saves the district. He's worth his weight in gold, I would say. He saves the district tremendous money in terms of he is always the first call before we call in an outside contractor, which, as you know, if you do that at home, there's a significant cost to that each time you have them. And Mr. Fahey really does an outstanding job in doing that, so I thank him. And he was my right-hand man with all the ice storms and driving through town and checking that, so I sincerely appreciate all of his efforts.
According to the Worcester Telegram, I guess the town hall appreciates you, too.
Thank you.
Ms. Brunel, we were competing here for first time, and I was going to say the same thing, except she did it so much better. So, thank you, Mr. Fahey.
Thank you.
You didn't get an introduction.
That's all right. Just have to, notice it on, okay, here we go. Thank you very much.
Oh, you know what? I'm being asked if we can have a 5-minute recess. Would that be okay with everybody? Okay. Pupil Services.
Pupil Services,
Mr.
thank
McInerney.
you. Thank you very much. Before I start the slideshow, I just want to thank you all, and Dr. Brunel, Mr. Didi, and the rest of the administrators working collegially with me in looking at our needs for pupil services for not only for this school year, but as we look forward to 2010. In going back and looking at doing a little bit of research into the budget operation cost, just want to let you know that our special ed population, which is the first section of the presentation, followed by health services and then ELL, our special ed population is one of the lowest in the region and in the state. We have operated for the last few years with about a population of about 12 to 13%. Right now, we're just a little bit over 12% for our special ed population, as compared to a regional and a state average that ranges between 16 to 17%. So we do a very good job of identifying certain students, providing appropriate services and so forth, and hopefully this budget presentation will reflect where we need to be headed in the following year to ensure that we stay on that path. The special education operating cost centers are break these down for you as we go through, but it's the office here, it's our contracted services, and those generally reflect services that our full-time staff or part-time staff that are employed by us cannot provide. Supplies reflects, teaching supplies used across the district, testing supplies, again, district-wide. Our in-district transportation cost, I think in the budget it refers to it still as bus 10. I think that's a history lesson in and of itself, I think. Our out-of-district transportation costs, our tuitions to private schools, public schools, and collaboratives. Those are our major cost centers. Just as I start talking about and stealing Dr. Brunel's and Mr. Didi's term, economic concessions, before I get into it, I just want to note that these are the major areas that we are talking about here. There were several areas that we conceded. We searched the closets, as Dr. Brunel gave us the mission, go check your closets, go check all your resources. So we made other ones, but the major concessions that we made in working with the secondary school principals, Ms. Ortiz and Mr. Hanfield, was we truly felt the need for a secondary level team chair to be added. We're splitting one right now between the middle school and high school. It's not a very effective way of doing business, but we felt that in this time it's not appropriate to come forward looking for that position. We will be looking to use, once again, as Dr. Brunel referred to earlier, the FY10 Medicaid to offset our contracted service line. That is already reflected in the budget line item. Just so you'll be aware also, the overall contracted service line is reduced this year. I should have an asterisk after this one too, and I think Dr. Brunel and Mr. Didi may have alluded to this earlier, and certainly I think some of the school committee members did. We're looking for FY09 and FY10 circuit breaker to offset non-public school tuition. We have traditionally offset the non-public school tuition. Going back to the bar graph, that was the big spike. That's where the major cost is for students that are out of district. The word of caution here, just for circuit breaker alone, is we don't know what's happening in the economic times for 09. We alluded to that earlier. Circuit breaker is an area where we're supposed to be funded at 75%. We're being funded right now at 72%, and there is serious conversation about being funded at 64% next year. We've taken that into consideration as we move forward in this budget, so we're already thinking in that term. We're cautiously optimistic. Also, we do this every year, and we do it throughout the course of the year, but as of right now, budget reflects that we've looked at all the movement of our students from building to building, from program to program, going out of district, returning to the district. And we anticipate transferring 8 IAs or ABA and ABAs staff members as students change programs. They go into new schools, new programs, and so forth. Just want to let you know, this is not reflective of what we're doing now in '09. Again, we continuously look at this when students move in. How can we move it? How can we address it before we come back and look for new positions? With Dr. Brunel's approval, we've transferred already 1 IA, instructional assistant, out of the preschool to Bryn Mawr School for a new student. We are moving another IA out of the preschool into another position in another school to address the needs of students there for an open vacancy that's there. It's not a new position, it's an open vacancy that's there. But we felt that we could do this and still meet the needs of our preschool population rather effectively. Dr. Brunel alluded to earlier that we do have one request for a new position in the budget, and it's directly tied to the needs of a student. We have 1 ABA instructional assistant added in the budget to meet the needs of a student that will be entering kindergarten next year. And again, as I said earlier, we've looked at every conceivable way of covering this, and there is no other way other than looking to add one new position into the budget. And I believe we budgeted that at $22,400. Special education supplies and services. This is basically my office and some of the things that are contractual in my contract, and none of that has increased none of it's increased for the last few years. Obviously you're not running an office on $1,600, so we look to offset that through not only central office supplies, but through grants and other things that we bring into the district, and we do bring a considerable amount of money into the district through grants. Special Ed homebound account, just a quick explanation. From time to time, we have students, and it's a bit of a wild card, we have students that are not able to attend school. They may be hospitalized, they may be institutionalized. For whatever reason, they are not able to come to school. We need to provide services outside of school, and that's contracted services for that. As I said earlier, contracted services, I put an asterisk after that. It's offset with a projected 2010 Medicaid funds. The local budget amount is $130,000, which I believe is about a $20,000 plus reduction from last year. Classroom supplies and staff travel.
Through the chair, can I ask, what would staff travel include? I understand
We
yourself,
have,
but...
Right, we have a number of staff members who travel from itinerant staff, speech, OT, PT, psychologists, team chairs who travel amongst the buildings to provide services to students, and that would be those would be the individuals that are reimbursed at the approved rate.
So the travel is from what? From central office to an elementary school?
Well, from school amongst the schools, right? Or if they provide, if they're testing a student or in another setting, or attending a meeting at for example, if we're observing a student at a community pre-K setting or something along that line.
Okay, but it's not like a weekly from their home to work.
Oh, nobody gets reimbursed from home to work.
I just wanted to clarify that.
This is only for travel amongst the schools.
Okay, thank you.
Or on school business.
So you reduced the contracted services by about $20,000?
Yeah.
And that's
$25,000, I believe, overall.
And that's just a figure that you're sort of hoping that will be, or is that sort of, you know that to be, that will be a case?
I'm cautiously optimistic that I will be fine with that number.
Okay. When I'm asking these questions, please, it's not that I feel like you haven't done your job. It's just that I
No.
really want to make sure that people are asking what they need so that we're not coming back later. The community really needs to understand that we're trying to cut things, but not to the point where we're being unrealistic, so.
We go out every year and for the contracted services, and we renegotiate. And of course, we haven't done that yet because we won't do that until we have a final budget approved by the committee and we know what our lines are and so forth. But each year we do go out and we renegotiate contracts with all the vendors that come in from, for example, French River provides us physical therapy services. A couple years ago, we had a different provider. We went out, we renegotiated, got a better rate. Vision Mobility, we did the same thing this year. So we do it on and on and on. We look at rates continuously, but not only just the rate. We look at the quality of service, the continuity, and the consistency of care, because there's something to be said for that. Changing, much like one of the goals is to have a stable administrative team. One of the goals that we have also is to have a stable staff in place to provide the continuity and services to our children. So many of our contractors, we want to get the best rate, but we want to get the best service also.
Thanks.
Testing supplies. Testing supplies includes psychological testing that are, actually we have 2 psychologists that are employed as psychologists. We have Mrs. Mayo that's employed as a team chairperson, but is also a psychologist. So she's our Mr. Fahey of school service people. We double and triple dip on Mrs. Mayo all the time. She's a great asset to us. It also includes achievement testing. It includes kindergarten, pre-K screening, any testing that we need to do on students to determine their eligibility and continued eligibility for services. In-district transportation. This rate is elevated from the current year. I've done 2 things. We do need to go back out next year for transportation bids. We did look at our actual costs this year. We combined, historically, we used to hire bus monitors. We got out of that business several years ago, and the bus companies hire the monitors. So we took the money out of the monitor line, which we've been transferring over the last couple of years, and included it in the actual in-district, and you'll see it also in the out-of-district transportation line. But we also increased based on our usage and fuel projection cost and so forth. And quite honestly, some of it was a gamble. We don't quite know what the contracts come in at right now, but that's what our guesstimate is right now, our best guess estimate for our in-district transportation costs for 2010.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Going back to testing supplies, where do I see that reflected in your?
It should be on the last page of the pupil services budget, about halfway down, psych services.
I see it. Okay, thank you.
It's that print too.
No, I was looking for testing services, and I went right by it because I was looking under the, okay.
Non-public school transportation, very high figure, same rationale. We included the monitors in this figure. We'll be going back out again for the contracts, fuel adjustment costs. The other thing I added in here, which we haven't accounted for in the past, was the rise in homeless students. It's a very broad category, homelessness. That's a whole other presentation maybe someday, if you wish. But we did put an additional $10,000 into the non-public transportation for homeless students. And that's reflective of what actual cost we had in 2009. I do see this as probably being one of the areas, given the economic concerns that we have right now, and again, the broad category that defines homelessness in education as being a major cost factor. And one of the biggest things in homeless education is to stabilize the student's education, give them some stability in a time of turmoil. And one of the things is getting the student to the school of their choice.
So can I just expand on that, because, and tell me if I'm right, because it may have changed since the last time it was explained to me. If somebody is homeless and they are put here by the state into Auburn as a place to live, I'm not sure where that would be, a hotel or, and that family chooses that where they came from before they became homeless was Worcester, for example. We then have to supply the transportation for them to go back to Worcester to go to school. Is that correct?
We split the cost with the other district.
Okay.
But it's not even with the state. If people are doubled up because of hardship, they lost their apartment and they had to double up with Auntie M, and they're living there. But they lived in Leominster, and now they're living with the aunt in Auburn, and they want to go back to Leominster. We would negotiate with Leominster on the transportation, and we'd split the cost on the transportation.
So every day they're transported there and back.
Yeah.
And that's a law. We have to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay. I just want to make people aware of that, because that's a...
And they get to decide, because it provides a stability, temporary foster care. There's a lot of reasons, as I said, but it is a law. And again, it's for the stability of the child in an educational program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Jill had the electric bill. I have my tuition accounts. It looks so much better when you put the little asterisk after it, too. The tuition to public schools, really right now, as of right now and anticipated for next year, the only other public school that we are tuitioning students into, and that could change, but right now it's Oxford. They have a couple programs that for very low incident populations that we don't provide and provide for, and or can't provide for. And so we have some students there. We have several students in day schools, private day schools, and private residential programs. And again, this is the 383,973 is reflective of, offset by 09 and 10 circuit breaker carryover funds. And then our tuition for collaborative programs is for Southern Worcester County Collaborative. That's the collaborative that we use right now and we're a member of.
Any questions?
The health services, this is our nursing department, and just real quick kudos to, number one, the entire nursing department. It's just amazing to me. I get the monthly reports from the nurses, as Dr. Brunel does. The number of incidents during the course of a month, and how many students and staff and faculty members they see and address, and the needs, the yeoman's chore. But Ann L. Said and Glenna Sullivan are two of the finest nurses I've had the opportunity to work with in a public school. They went out last year and worked on an enhanced school health grant that I remember the committee signed off on. Although we didn't get it, we are receiving benefits from that. We have another school district, I believe it's Douglas right now, that is working with us. And because we applied for the grant and they did all that work, we get free staff training from that, free mentoring. They've worked with the Lions Club to get the Vision Mobile. They're working with the mobile dentist to help that program come in to assist students with dental needs in the district. So these two nurses have been outstanding, procuring substitute nurses for us. So my hat goes off to them. It's on top of everything else they do, servicing, keeping our schools safe. They've done a great job. This budget is close to balanced from last year. I did put a slight increase in for school physicians. We were, after searching for about a year and a half to 2 years, able to reobtain a school physician at the elementary, middle school level. And we have our school physician at the high school level. Supplies, substitutes, and conferences. Just the only comment I have is we have like a once-in-a-decade opportunity for our nurses here this year. National Nursing Conference is being held in Boston this year, and they've asked to go to that. It's usually at the end of the, well, let's hope it's at the end of the school year this year. It's in June. Who knows? They've asked to attend the conference. I think it's next June, actually. That conference will be here, and they've asked to attend that. One area that is, although not new to you, is we've switched it around in the budget a little bit, is English learner education. Dr. Brunel alluded to it a little bit before by talking about approximately 55 students that we have receiving ELE services. Of those students, they represent students who have limited English proficiency. Their primary language, or the primary language in their home, is other than English. We're talking about 15 different languages for that number of students. Students that have come from 13 different countries, and plus the United States. We have students that were born, raised in the United States, but whose primary language is other than English, and they receive services. You will see that in this budget that, as Mr. Dede said originally, or Dr. Brunel, what we were looking for originally and what we're looking for right now to continue with our tutors is substantially less than we had initially anticipated. But we feel as we move forward, this is a great way to at least get us going and keep the momentum going right now. Last year, I think we had identified 23 students. I mentioned maybe a year or 2 years ago to the committee that we're probably just hitting the tip of the iceberg with ELE services, and many communities are seeing a rise in services in this area. So this is a new line item for contracted individuals who come in and provide tutorial services under the guidelines of ELE services. Translators, we actually we centralized all of these this year. They're not in the pupil services budget, as they're in the central office budget. But translators at approximately $2,500, or we're looking for $2,500 for translators. Just to clarify, translators, as opposed to having every single one of our handbooks translated into those 15 different languages, we employ a translator to come in and translate, for example, the discipline code. If we have a meeting with a parent and they require a sign language interpreter, that would come out of that because we're obligated to do that also. Or something needs to be translated for information going home, we'll hire a translator to do it verbally.
Janie?
Just Muriel, is that enough? I mean, because I know that, well, for instance, are we closing that barn door after the horse is gone if we don't give them the whole handbook in their native language, which I know we're required to do?
No, just through the chair, we're not required to give them the whole handbook. We've gone through a coordinated program review. We've submitted it. We actually hired a consultant to go through this with us, and our individual who is now overseeing the ELE section of our program helped develop similar programs in other districts, and the department approved our handbook. And in the handbook, the guidelines, we had indicated that we would use translators to review the discipline code. They can receive a copy of the whole book, but our obligation is to go through. We certainly can translate anything they want, and when they come into the school district, upon registration, one of the things they fill out is a home language survey. The home language survey indicates their language spoken at home, if they had come from another country, if they wish to have information translated into a language other than English, and what that will be. And so from that, we make sure that we provide those translations. And we meet the requirement of the law. The other thing that having a qualified translator does, that sometimes putting it on paper does, is making sure that terminology that may not be readily translated into another language can be explained to parents.
Colloquialisms?
Exactly, thank you. So it does meet the legal obligation under the law, and it actually goes a little bit further than, and there are some times when it's extremely difficult to get a translator, period, for certain languages. So it's not always guaranteed that you're going to get one. But we feel that the $2,500, based on what we've done in the past and our projection for enrollment right now, is adequate. Teaching supplies, as the program is still emerging, but Ms. Mackenzie Rogers has gone through with me, and we look seriously at it, and we feel that not just new supplies, but one of the things that we will be doing is using materials and supplies that are currently in the schools, especially in our sheltered English immersion programs. And then testing supplies, we purchase a lot of supplies up front, and many of the supplies, quite honestly, the Mela-O's, the MEPAs, are provided by the state. And finally, I just want to thank you again for your continued support of the Department of Pupil Services as we continue to enhance our programs and services to meet the needs of all the children enrolled in public schools.
Any other questions?
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, last but not least, our technology budget.
In blue, nonetheless.
What?
In blue.
In blue.
I'm not quite
blue,
sure why
nonetheless.
I ended up in blue. I didn't make the copies.
Blue was in the machine last night.
It was late.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It serves to highlight how important it is.
There you go.
school colors.
I don't know if I want to stand out in these rough economic times, quite honestly. My presentation to you tends to be a lot more philosophical, I think. There's really, the technology budget really isn't proposing a lot of new things. We're actually proposing some things that are going to decrease what we generally use for costs. And, but I wanted to really talk about what a technology budget is and what it should be, and how we go about building it. And really there's 5 components to what I see as a technology program. There are infrastructure. We're well aware by now of our infrastructure issues in Auburn. The fiber optic project continues to be somewhere, but not on anybody's front burner. Hardware and software, obviously everyone knows you need computers, you need stuff to run on them. The integration, the most important piece, in my mind, is what do our teachers actually do with this stuff when they get it in their classrooms. Professional development, we need to keep them up to date and ahead of the times. And technical support, we need to make sure that it's running all the time and that someone's there to fix it when it's broken. So when we look at these, we have to make sure that if we're building a strong technology budget, we're meeting all 5 of these, because if we're not, the program will break. If you're not providing professional development, you can buy all the computers you want. If they don't know how to use them, they're going to sit there. You can buy all the computers you want, but if you don't have a solid infrastructure, if you don't have a good internet connection, if the server isn't there when they need it to work, they're not going to use them. All 5 of those need to be in place if you want a strong budget. The weakest link will break your program. I've seen it happen, and it's an unfortunate thing. It's very rare that a district can provide money to all 5 of these to keep them all up at one time. Generally what you find is one district is very strong in one area and weak in another. And as a result, they have a program that doesn't function properly. This year, we've done something a little different when we built the technology budget. We've looked at it from the district down. In the past, the school districts have had their own line item for technology. They've purchased their own some of their own equipment, some of their own software. This year, we decided to take those line items out, bring them to a district level so that we can look at it top down, make sure that we're providing the same equipment and the same opportunities across all our schools. As a technology department, our number one goal, without a doubt, is to support teaching and learning. If that isn't our number one goal, we're doing something wrong and we have our priorities out of order. Technology's got to be there when the kids need to use it. It has to be in the classrooms, and it has to be available to our staff.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Eric, can I stop for a second?
Sure.
I don't have the line item budget for technology. I've got central office in
It's
here.
in central office.
It's actually in, if I may, through the chair, in the central office budget, on the second page of that budget, it is if you go down to the bottom, it's the second grouping up from the bottom. It says Director of Technology / Instructional Support Costs.
Oh, I've got it. Okay,
Got it.
thank
That's
you.
that
I'm
piece.
sorry.
No.
Thank you. I was confused.
And actually, on the first page of it is where you see the salary for Mr. Bouvier, our Director of Technology, as well as for Mr. Marino,
Okay.
who does the technical support. So it's within the central office.
Okay, thank you. I apologize.
Oh, that's fine. Decisions have to be made by all our stakeholders. That's a goal that we're working on right now. We are soliciting the opinions of our staff. We're soliciting the opinions of our students at the high school. And we're trying to find out what areas the technology department what needs they're meeting for both our teachers and our students, and what areas we're not. So we're looking to broaden how our decisions are made. Technology should make what we do easier and less costly. We are looking for ways to go green, and how can we utilize and leverage our technology to decrease our costs in other areas. Electricity is a big one we've been concerned about, and we've made a concerted effort to make sure that our teachers are turning off their computers and their equipment at the end of the day to save us as much money as possible. Finally, tech support must be focused on supporting our teachers and staff. I think sometimes technical support can be focused on sometimes you get overly focused on the stuff and not on the fact that the teachers and the students have to use the computers and the software. And the way that you support your technology has to make their lives easier. There's no other reason to have this in our classrooms than to improve teaching and learning. So this budget that I propose is geared towards supporting the curriculum through some new software, not very much. We know we don't have a lot of money. Increasing communications with parents, which is one of the areas that Dr. Brunel highlighted in her 3 questions. Utilizing resources to improve access to technology. We have a fairly innovative way of doing that through this budget. Providing equity across buildings. This is a big one for me. Making sure that the paired elementary schools have the same thing, so that one student that lives in one part of town doesn't have access to a piece of equipment that someone else doesn't in the other school. Supporting the middle school through the corrective action process, and providing timely technical support. So when we're looking at supporting the curriculum through new software, we're actually proposing 2 main new pieces of software, and it's called Study Island. It's an online program that is used for MCAS skills development. We use it currently at the middle school. We feel that by putting this in at Julia Bancroft and Packagug, we will provide some continuity. They'll have the same software at those levels as when they get to the middle school, and it will help increase their skills for when they get to the middle school. So Study Island is something we really look for. Our principals have asked for this. And then at Bryn Mawr and Mary D, again, we're looking at those MCAS areas to help support our middle school everyday math games, which goes in line with the everyday math program that they're currently using. Increasing communication with parents.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
before you go further? The study island, then, I don't know how to pose this question, and it makes sense. I guess, so this is more for MCAS preparation?
It's for curriculum development and MCAS preparation,
Okay.
yeah.
And so students will go down during their English class, that will be part of their English curriculum?
Actually, no.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, what you want them to do is it to be available to all teachers to use in their classrooms or to go to the computer labs and use with their teachers. We don't have staffed computer labs. We can't send them to, we can't send them to the computer teacher to do study island at those levels. At the middle school, it is handled that way a lot. They go see Mr. Harbour, who will help
Right.
them with study island. It's going to have to be more in-classroom type equipment
Okay.
or use. Go ahead.
And if I may add to that, students, once we purchase access to this web-based program, students can access it from their homes or from the town library. So they would actually get a password that they can do. And it's a leveled program that as students continue to make progress in it, the difficulty of the questions become
Right.
more challenging for them. So it's very much defined or specific to students and their needs. It's really numerous school districts. Auburn Middle School has been using it for a number of years now, and something that the Julie Bancroft and Packard was both very much interested in, and numerous schools are using it. One of my nephews is using it and loves it and does it at home all the time.
And this is the same program that the teacher can look and see the
Yes.
progress?
Yes.
Yes.
And is it they can see the individual pupils' progress or overall
They can
progress
see
of the...
individual
Individual.
pupils.
Okay.
So that they can generate reports on their class of kids. You assign all the students in the software to a teacher, a math teacher, for instance, and they have access to all the kids' data, see the activities that they've done well in, see the activities that they've struggled in, and the software will continue to adjust to each kid's performance. So as they're going through, if they're having trouble with fractions, they will continue to get increased work in fractions until they show
They master
progress, and then it will move.
Right.
It's a great program.
So it is a leveled program, right? Back to this.
I'm sorry.
We're looking at bringing in a program called Edline, and Edline is one of the few new things that we're actually looking to bring in this year. It would essentially be a new website for the school, which I think we all agree we could use. We have one. It functions to a various degree depending on what section you're looking at, but it's not perfect. It would, however, also allow parental access to school data at the middle and high school, and I'll explain why just middle and high school. So you'll, as a parent, you'll have a login. You'll be able to look at your student, some data about your students' grades, attendance, discipline, and most of those are the main pieces of equipment that we track through our Admin Plus program. The reason that I put AMS and AHS here is because we use an electronic gradebook at those two buildings. We do not at the elementary school because they're standards-based report cards and they're handwritten. So grading data would be restricted to what you'd normally, quarter-type grades that get inputted into Admin Plus. At the middle school and high school, they would have access to more grading data. For instance, we could ask our teachers to submit grade reports every 2 weeks, and parents would have access to essentially a progress report more regularly than they have access to them right now. And then attendance would be live at all the schools, and discipline. If it's being kept at those individual schools, each principal handles discipline a little bit differently.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Probably to Dr. Brunel as well as to you. Do you have any way of knowing that once you put this out there for parents, how much more time now teachers have to spend responding to parents as opposed to teaching students? Is there any sort of data on that, or any?
In response to that, we, as a leadership team, saw, this came through the 3-question summary, there was a request for this, and actually at the corrective action informational meeting at Auburn Middle School back in the fall, it was requested there as well. So Mr. Bouvier was given the task of investigating some different options, and we saw this, they did a demonstration actually. He connected with it there. Because Auburn Middle and Auburn High School are currently using Admin Plus and doing their gradebook, doing gradebook online, which is connected through Admin Plus, I don't anticipate that it would be significantly more time for them to be doing it. It would just be, they'd be transmitting it through to the office. You can talk about the
what
It's
I'm
not
asking
a
is
lot
now
of more
you're-
administrative work. I think she means how many
No.
more, your parents are going to see more access to
Exactly.
data and
They're
want
going
to
to
talk
have,
to.
they're going to be making
Okay.
more calls to teachers
Oh.
I don't
and
have any
wanting
data
their
about that,
time.
Yeah,
but I'd
okay.
submit that that's a good thing anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
It is, unless you find that teachers are so bogged down trying to get back to parents that they're taking time. I don't know how that, how that works, so I was just curious about that.
I would think you'd find more of an issue. You might find an issue with that at the middle school. I think as you get lower in the grades, you'd find more of an issue with that.
Sure.
Um,
I don't think that's a bad thing. I
No.
just
Right,
mean it's
right.
going to be a time management sort of
Yeah.
issue I mean, you might find that kids are doing better because parents know sooner
Right.
when their kids are slipping, so.
It does allow for teacher web pages, so teachers will have their ability to manage their own web page, put up relevant information for their students and their parents. It allows for homework posting, which is a big deal. We have a few teachers at the high school that use our current system for this, but this would be unilateral. Everyone would be able to have a web page where they could post homeworks, upcoming tests and quizzes, and again, any other information that is important to their class. Syllabi, expectations, rubrics, all could go here and be available for parents and students to access. Calendaring system was one of a big need for us, we feel. We've struggled with a calendaring system. Our current web pages calendaring system isn't very good. This one is very nice. It will allow different calendars all the way down to the students. So you could see all the district events, you could see individual school events, you could layer them all on top of one another so you see everything together. As a teacher has access to a calendar where they can post all their upcoming homework assignments for each individual class. And when they do that, every student enrolled in that class, those assignments flow to those student and parent calendars. So as a parent, you can go in and see for all your kids every event that they have scheduled, every test, every quiz, every homework assignment, every project, all on a single calendar. You have access to all of this data. And most importantly, it integrates with Admin Plus, which means there really isn't any additional work for our secretarial staff. This system will pull all the classroom assignments, all the student assignments, teacher assignments, right out of Admin Plus and create those web pages for them initially and allow access. So it is a secure site as long as parents maintain their passwords and don't share them with their students. And students will have their own passwords for their information. This is a site that I know, Mary Ellen, you have someone in your family that has a student that uses this website. And,
Yeah,
it's some
in
very positive reviews.
a couple of other, two actually neighboring communities. One uses this one here exactly, another one uses a variation on this model and have found it to be extremely beneficial. Certainly on the parental end, I don't know if my nieces would agree, but the parents having regular access to all of this information, and also with the attendance, it is they can access that on a daily basis because it's always put in through Admin Plus. So if there's ever a question about a child not being in school, the parent would have that information immediately.
As a parent, you'd see when they came, what days they were in school, what days they signed out of school, if they were late, all of that information. There's no hiding it anymore. We did look this year at turning the elementary school webpage, grade report cards into an electronic document. It's a very costly maneuver to go through, and we just felt that this probably wasn't the year to go ahead with that. Should we do that in the future, then elementary school parents would have access to the same type of information.
If I may, through the chair, this is an extremely aggressive undertaking, it looks on paper. Do we have timelines for these variety of things?
It's, well, we don't have it yet, so we haven't really developed a timeline. But honestly, the majority of the work is already done through the creation of the schedule and the scheduling of kids and students, there really isn't a lot of work that falls on my department or secretarial department involved in implementing this sort of system.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
are we, is our goal to try to do this for the upcoming school year, to like, as of September or August, when the children go back to school, that, you know, this new parental access will be available and the homework posting will be, I mean, what's your anticipation of what you're
What
trying
I
to-
would anticipate happening is, assuming this gets through an approval through the budget process, obviously there's going to be training that needs to take place for staff members. And I think in any new endeavor, to my mind, it always makes sense to start slow, build some successes, and move forward with this. So I think ultimately, in the end, parents may have complete access to seeing, you know, grades and things like that. Perhaps what we will do, what might make sense, and I would want to involve, as I know Mr. Bouvier would, and the principals as well, teachers who are going to be implementing this, and have them involved in the process of how do we roll this out. Maybe it makes sense to start with homework postings, you know, first, and then get everyone to a comfort level with that, and then go to the next step of, you know, grades. And maybe it makes sense initially to have grades posted on a monthly basis, you know, and then once people get comfortable with that, perhaps it may come to a point that every couple of weeks it makes sense to do it. So this is the very first step in the process. We as a leadership team saw this and saw great potential in it, but quite honestly, we're not going to be the primary people who will be updating this. So obviously this takes an investment from the teachers, so it will be rolled out over time. I would anticipate, you know, that by the end probably of the 2010-2011 school year, we might be fully functioning and using all of the features of it.
One of the benefits we do have, however, is we currently use Edline as the gateway to the online grade book that we use at the high school and middle school. So all our high school and middle school teachers are currently familiar with logging into Edline and accessing the grade book and the look and feel. So they have a little bit of experience there. It's not going to be an entirely new thing at those two schools.
And that, if I can just piggyback on, that was one of the reasons when Mr. Bouvier reviewed through, there are a variety of different ones out there, I forget some of the names now, and one of the primary reasons we chose to go this way was because there was that familiarity already there with teachers. So we thought that would be one less problem or, you know, new thing to overcome.
Sure. This is great. I mean, this is great.
It's a
really good
big
stuff.
step, and a lot of
Yeah.
schools are doing it.
Yeah.
And it does open up, you know, some issues with parents and yes, some communication issues with parents and teachers, but I think that's the sort of thing, as we go forward with this, we have to draft specific policies that address this kind of information. The one thing I do like this system against other systems is, my former district, parental access meant you had live viewing of almost the teacher's whole grade book, which meant homework by homework assignment, and that got a little granular, and parents would get, my son submitted that homework assignment, why isn't it corrected yet?
Exactly.
This is reports. So they generate a report, and they don't see that level of detail. They see where my student is as opposed to 2 weeks ago with tests and quizzes and homework maybe, but they're not going to see each individual thing, so they can get really picky about it.
Right.
And honestly, that allays the fears of teachers as well, because they're really nervous about what could happen if their grade book was open to the world.
Sure.
So, increasing access to technology is a real exciting one this year. We know we have a large amount of computers in Auburn, over 800 computers in this district. Dr. Brunel asked me this year to draft a plan to come up with a solution for how do we replace these over a period of time, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, even at 8 years, over 100 computers a year. I don't know how we can go ahead and do that. That's a lot of computing. It's $800 a computer. That's a lot of money. So what we came across was this solution called N Computing. N Computing is a relatively new company that offers a piece of equipment that will allow us to take a single computer and connect 4 additional monitors, keyboards, and mice off of it without significantly reducing the speed and the processing power.
Do they all operate independently,
Yes, you can log in individually on each separate machine.
simultaneously?
Yeah. One computer essentially becomes 5 computer workstations. We can then take those other computers that we'd have in the room, a classroom with 2 computers, for instance, we could put in one of these, buy an end computing solution. We would, instead of 2 computers for student use, they'd have 5. And we take that other computer, bring it somewhere else, and do the same thing. So incrementally, it really adds up to a lot more workstations, less physical boxes. And to sort of illustrate that, before end computing, if we took a computer lab with 25 workstations at roughly $800, the cost of a machine, it's about $20,000 to just put the computers in a lab. But if we were to do it with end computing, we would only be buying 7 computers. We'd be looking at the possibility of, we've been working off of 4, the machine, and then 3 additional monitors, keyboards, and mice. So 28 total workstations to be conservative, but we could go up to 35. It would free up 18 computers for us to move to other locations in the school. And when you look at the costs, 7 computers cost $5,600. The end computing modules cost $200 a piece. We have keyboards, mice, and monitors. That's not a problem. We have piles of them. We have a little bit of software licensing to purchase. But the total cost of the lab becomes $8,000 versus $20,000. And we're decreasing electrical costs because we're not running the big CPU, which is pushing all the hardware and the fans. We're decreasing the number of those in district. This is currently running in the Bryn Mawr Library. We bought one system this year to try it out. It's working well. We've had a few minor hiccups along the way, but nothing that we can't handle. And the students are using it, and it's working. So next year, we're looking at buying 30 of these for a total of $6,000. And that dramatically increases our ability to push computers out across the district, increase access, which is the key, and decrease the amount of computers that we actually have to maintain and support.
I imagine the only thing that's limited is the printing capacity?
It all runs the same through, we do most of our printing through the networks.
Oh.
They will be networked, they have internet access. You can connect a USB drive into the machine. It takes up less space. It's a really nice system. Other districts, I know Southbridge is using them, I know Valley Tech is using them, and Sutton is using them. Providing equity across buildings is another one of our goals. All resources are being purchased from a district level, and we're purchasing them for all applicable schools. So if we're buying a piece of software for Bryn Mawr, we're also buying it for Mary Eastone. It doesn't make sense for us not to do that. We're providing, if we are, we're giving one group of kids resources that we're not providing to the others, and we're not going to do that anymore. Supporting the middle schools, we already talked about Study Island, and that's really where we're geared towards. Our software purchases that we're making this year and they're minor are going towards, have all been made with the idea that we need to improve MCAS scores, and that in turn will filter up to the middle school. Technical support. We're not changing the amount of technical support we have next year. We don't have the capacity to. So basically it's myself, Mr. Marino, who does a wonderful job and is out straight, quite frankly. And one of the reasons why you don't see a whole lot of new initiatives in this budget is because we don't have the people to put it in. Edline is relatively easy. Most of that work is done through Admin Plus and the company. There's not much work for us to do. But we don't have extra staff to implement new things. And our technology facilitators that are at each school that help with minor technical issues, changing printer cartridges, a variety of things. Some do more than others depending on their level of expertise. Last year we removed the network manager from the budget. We were hoping to put it in this year, but obviously with the economic times it's not a position we can add. But we do feel that it is a position that we should have. This is a rather large network. Some would argue much larger right now than it has to be, and that's due to the lack of fiber and our infrastructure issues. But even if we were to implement that, 6 schools, 1 administration building, that is a big network to maintain, and manage to support your rest of your users. And right now, we can't do it all. I wanted to call your attention to the contracted services line in the budget, because this is a new line item, but it's not new stuff. And I thought it would be it would stand out because it was 0 last year, and it's got a big number in there this year. Essentially, contracted services for us is those services that we purchase yearly that are not, I wouldn't call them software purchases. Admin Plus, we have to have Admin Plus. It's our school management package, and every year we have to pay a support and maintenance fee on that. So it's a contracted service. It doesn't fit well under software, which is where we used to capture it. So we made this line item this year to move some of those items over to remote backup, which we use to back up our critical data at our elementary schools. The Grade Quick Web, which is the online grade book at the middle and high school. Virtual high school, which we've signed on and we've started using for the first time this year at the high school. And some online science textbooks, which are a new purchase, but that's getting the science department at the high school through this year or through next year. They need to buy some new textbooks, but the textbooks that they want to buy are in revision, so they're going to buy them online for a year and wait for the new ones to come out rather than spend money on a book that is old and out of date. And that comes directly from the science department chair. Why do we need to invest in technology? You've seen these before, I'm sure. 21st century skills, you've all heard that. It's a big push. I know that Patrick is putting a big push on 21st century skills. The Department of Ed is pushing 21st century skills. We need to educate our kids to work tomorrow, and they need to have a certain skill set to be able to do that in new jobs and be able to communicate across boundaries and across countries and work in groups that are not in the same room. 21st century skills are big. Our students need technology skills to succeed in our educational process. We require them nowadays. But unfortunately, a lot of times we assume that our students, because they're young and grew up with technology, know technology, and that's not true. They are technological beings. They have cell phones. They are wired. They are wireless. They know how to do the things that interest them. What we have found, and the complaints I get from the high school is, they really don't know how to do research. They really don't know how to use Excel. They really don't know how to use these core applications in school. Those skills don't translate. They're not fun. They're not exciting. They're not learning Excel at home. If we don't provide them that, then when they get to the high school and the science teacher says, okay, now you've done your lab, graph your results, all the hands go up and say, how? And that happens now, and that can't happen. So we have to continue to invest because we need to bring these skills to our students. And we cannot assume technology competence just because they're children and they're young and they grew up with it. It would be foolhardy for us to do that. We need to continue to put money into technology. So go back to our 5 areas. Does our technology budget meet these areas? We are increasing hardware and software, and we're doing it in an innovative fashion. Hopefully that's going to save us money down the line. We are targeting integration. We're looking at the Study Island is an integration piece of software that's going to help deliver the curriculum. But we're not addressing infrastructure, and I think we all know why. It's not within our power at this time to string fire. We're not adding professional development through this budget. We'll have to rely on the district's professional development budget to do that, and a lot of workshops that we can do ourselves and after school kind of stuff during professional development time. And we're not adding technical support. We just don't have the means to do that this year. So our budget for this year is out of balance. We don't have a lot of options here, but we can make do. So in conclusion, the technology department is committed to finding ways to save money. I think we showed you that with the end computing. That's a direct way that we can decrease our costs. We're not asking for any new computers this year. I think actually we're asking for 2, and with end computing that becomes 8. We're not really asking to buy a lot of equipment out of this budget. It's just not there. And we're committed to finding ways to utilize technology to help in other departments. We are working hard to go green where we can. Where I've been meeting with the environmental club at the high school and the environmental club leader to discuss ways that we can use that group to decrease printing costs. Or how can we, what areas in the schools can we not print anymore? What do we not need to print anymore? What can we submit electronically or do things in other ways? And if we can decrease our printing costs, we can decrease in a lot of cases our postage costs, and those are two simple areas that we can start to leverage the equipment we already have to decrease our costs in other areas, and we're working hard and we're focusing on that this year to really pull some ideas out and help to do that. So we're trying to go green as much as possible. We know that by nature technology requires electricity. Let's see if we can offset that by decreasing some costs in some other areas. So there's it's a pretty straightforward budget.
Any questions?
I have a comment that doesn't really pertain to the budget as itself.
Yeah.
It's more of a protocol issue. If you have, and Dr. Brunel, I think this might be directed towards you more so than Mr. Bouvier. If you have a teacher that's communicating with the parent over email, I know in the industry standard out there in the working world, there's a disclaimer that's put at the bottom of all the emails that say, you know, legally this is confidential and is between such and such and such and such the parties, and if you get this, you know, and utilize it the wrong way, that, you know, you're liable and blah, 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 blah. Has there been any thought of having that particular statement added to teacher email correspondence?
There isn't one currently, and if we could get wording most likely from the attorney, I'm sure it would be easy enough to.
Do you know what I'm referencing?
I absolutely do,
Yeah.
and I think you raise a great point. In my previous district did it towards the end of the time that I was there, or maybe midway through. So I think it's a great point, and we will certainly look into that and bring some language back to the committee for you to see before it goes on, but that makes perfect sense.
Okay, thank you.
That way it's automatically generated onto
Right,
every email that's
exactly,
exchanged.
exactly,
Yes.
Ron?
Yeah, I have a comment too. And, you know, first, you know, I'd like to say I'm really impressed with the steps that we're taking in technology. I think that rightly we have been concerned and we're trying to provide equity across buildings. My concern is, though, that even if we can provide equity in the school system, the more we put on a website, the more we assume that parents can use, the more we are not taking into concern the lack of equity in homes. There are many homes in Auburn still without computer access. There are many parents who don't have much technological competence. I would hate to have a system where we are putting online or making available information that is accessible to some families and some students, but not accessible to all. So I think we have to always be concerned that those students who don't have at-home technology aren't finding themselves at a disadvantage to those students whose parents are very technologically competent or have a lot of equipment at home.
If I may, I think you raise an excellent point, and I think that as a school system, one of our obligations, ethical, I would offer, is to not create a further divide between those that have access to things and those that do not have access to whether it's technology or books or materials and whatnot. So we will certainly move cautiously in that direction. And I jokingly said to some of the middle school teachers at the conclusion of the awards ceremony the other night, when one of them was teasing me that when the phone rings and he hears my voice, he said, I never thought I'd hear your voice so much with the snow calls and the cancellations and delays and that. And I said to him, and the group of them there, that I very much want to do a survey through One Call Now. I think I had said they can do a tone response. Does your home have internet access and email access at home? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no. I'm hesitating, I'm waiting purposely to do that because I'm afraid that someone's going to pick up the phone and hear my voice say, "This is Mary Ellen Brunel, Superintendent of Schools," and someone's going to say, "Oh, no school," and hang up. So I'm trying to...
6 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. So I'm trying to time that a little bit, when there's like a good stretch of weather, which we can't seem to find right now. But to that point, I think it's critical that we do that if we're going to be providing access, if it's determined on a monthly basis, to a progress report at Auburn Middle and High, if we go forward with Edline, once we determine the families who don't have access online, that we would simply print out that report and send it to them. So I think we do need to do those types of things, obviously.
And for those of us that do have computers at home, I think it might still be helpful that along the lines of a parent night or something like that, you might have parents come in and show them online how they get the stuff.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Like just explain it to them.
No, I think that not having computers at home is an issue for us more than just with new initiatives we might want to bring forth. It's an issue for our teachers because they want to assign projects. Go home, take your data, make the graph in Excel, and they're not sure that every kid's going to go home and be able to do that. So, at least from the kids' point of view, it's in our best interest to try to find ways to make more technology available to them before and after school, if possible, through the library perhaps, but find other alternatives for people to access this technology. Even if we could find a way to provide access to parents and students at a Saturday afternoon or something so that they had access to this material. But it will continue to be a bigger and bigger problem as we get more and more technological.
Anything else? Mr. Bouvier, from the school committee member that you were probably ready to strangle the first time you came in front of us, not all of us remember that meeting, but I want to commend you. This is a very thorough presentation, and it was done with a lot of passion, and so I, for one, really enjoyed the presentation, got a lot out of it, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Wayne?
I'd like to say the same thing, and I like the idea of going green. The more you can and the more money you can save for the school system.
We're open to any and all ideas. Any and all ideas you have, pass them along.
Those were all really good
Anything else?
presentations.
I think the only thing that was left on our agenda was the superintendent goals and evaluations. Do we want to go through that now? Do we want to postpone that until Monday night's meeting? What would everyone like to do? I know Janie wants to postpone it to Monday night's meeting.
Second that.
Do you feel that we have that time?
I actually would say to you that in keeping with the timeline that was created, it was to be due to you by the first meeting in January. We can address it as you have questions with it. That was certainly my self-reflection on how I'm doing. And if you have input and things that you feel I should redirect energies toward, I would certainly be very open and willing to hear that information from you.
Well, what I'll do is I will... we'll put it on the next agenda, and then we'll decide how in-depth we want to go into the whole thing. Okay.
If I may, through the chair, I know you want to go. I just have a quick question. Just a couple things in regards, Dr. Brunel, to the school snow days, et cetera, that have gone on. Where do we currently stand as a school district, and are we looking to do anything at this point? I hear other communities saying, Martin Luther King Day, they're now going to school, and they're talking about shortening February vacation or April vacation. And I'm just wondering, I mean, I did read that, but I'm just, are we okay right now, or where do we stand, or?
Sure. Through the chair, right now, we are at our final day for students will be Monday, June 22nd, with the snow days to date. And fortunately, we started before Labor Day, so we're in pretty good shape. The memo that came out from Commissioner Chester, which I believe I may have shared with you via email, but they are adamant at this point that it is a 180-day requirement. And I actually would be quite surprised if there's any leeway in that at all. They did recommend, to look at what options you might want to take. I did a very informal survey with staff to see who might even be available. Is it even worth discussing February vacation and using some of those days? And what clearly came across just in a very informal, non-binding survey was that we would not be able to run effectively during that time for the February vacation. I talked with the leadership team about the February 6th professional day. We've got plans already established. We've hired people to come in and work, so that really is not an option. The Martin Luther King, that was a community up in New Hampshire. And New Hampshire, I believe, is the only state that is not recognizing that as a federal holiday, so that is not an option for us here. But we felt when we met just this week as a leadership team that based on the fact that our final day is Monday, June 22nd, we're in okay shape. We're holding steady right now. Now, should there be some more storms, and I'm knocking on wood that there are not, other than Saturdays or Sundays. I know, I heard that too. But we may need to reassess it. But right now, we're in okay shape, we feel.
Okay, great, thank you.
I think the big, I think the
reservations for the last week in June.
Yes, I would definitely not make vacation plans for that week.
the only other problem I see with all these snow days is that you have kids that are taking AP exams, and those exams don't change. They're set. And so a lot of these kids are not getting the time in that they need in order to take those tests successfully. So, yeah,
And they want a lot
it's a
of time
challenge.
after the tests are taken.
Right.
Yeah, they do. This is true. That's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
And same with MCAS tests. I mean, those dates are set in place, and when we lose these dates, and it'll be very interesting to see when I read in the paper today, Superintendent in Quabbin, Sue Gee, it seems like she was one of the persons spearheading this with the commissioner, and it was very clear that it is not an open meeting. It is a meeting with some select superintendents, basically from the northern part of the state. But I do have a couple of friends that will be attending that, so I will check with them. But I'd be surprised if the message was anything other than, right now, hold steady until you come back and say you're canceling this vacation, canceling this day, taking this back. We're not interested in hearing what you have to say. That's my sense.
Okay, thank you.
But if we have to come back, we're not
Derek's like, oh, great.
really going to look into taking away the February vacation, are we?
At this point, I would say the February vacation is completely off the table. We're not
Yeah, I
even
would say so.
considering that at all, based on just the fact that staffing was clearly going to be an issue. And I anticipated that with what I was going to hear, that people already had plans. It's 5 weeks away, but it was confirmed with that. But I'm not even at this point looking at taking April vacation at all, unless, all bets are off if we have 3 or 4 more snow days. And I think we're going to be forced to have the discussion.
All right, well, I don't mind having a discussion. I just hear a lot of complaints about the February vacation, and, I've been asked about it, and I says, well, I don't-
Having
I have-
February
yes.
vacation? Yeah.
And a lot of people have made plans, and you're talking about people in the school system that had made plans,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, no, at this point, February vacation will definitely be a vacation week.
okay.
Yes,
Thank you very
definitely,
much.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other concerns that I had too, I'm sorry, Jane, I didn't mean to cut you off, was that I know the high school's got international trips
Yeah,
going
trips.
both
Exactly.
February and April. And
Exactly.
what do you do with those kids if,
Right.
you know what I mean? And that's a lot of money that you're not going to get back
Oh,
if,
sure.
the kids are forced to be in school and
Right.
not be able to go. So,
And I think all of
there's
that
a
will
lot of
have to
things.
weigh in. And fortunately, with the 22nd, I mean, we've got 4 additional days that week and 2 additional days the following week. Now, I don't want to use those, but they're at least options for us by June 30th.
Great.
Plus,
The rain stops
we
doing
could
snow
do away
days.
with February vacation, and we could get a snowstorm that whole week.
There you go.
That's very true,
There
Liz.
you go.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Let's go to recess.
Yeah. Spearheading